Is it time?
It is time for us to do what we have been doing, and that time is every day.
We'll know in a very short period of time, but it looks like it could be something that will be not good. Believe me, not good.
I see issue with that. And again,
hey. You're not going to be able to insult your way to the presidency. That's not going to happen.
I don't know who created Pokemon Go, but I'm trying to figure out how we get them to have Pokemon go to the polls.
I'm Ted Cruz, and my pronoun is kiss my ass.
So when you think about it, there is great significance to the passage of time in terms of what we need to do to lay these wires, what we need to do to create these jobs.
America is a nation that can be defined in a single word. I was going to foot.
Not good. Believe me, not good.
What's up, everybody? A pleasant good evening to you all. Welcome, dissidents one and all, to the DueDissidence podcast. My name is Keaton Weiss, here with Russell Dobular. Got to unmute that microphone before you say your hello. I sent you your reminder, but you didn't check it.
Hello.
Oh, and we got you right there with the Mr.
distracted.
Softy truck.
Yeah, I was going to say, can you guys hear the Mr. Softy truck?
Yeah.
Do they have those everywhere in the country, or is that a regional thing?
I think Mr. Softy is New York.
It's New York, right?
That's a New York sound. I remember when I used to stay at my grandmother's in the Bronx, we used to hear the Mr. Softy song when I was a kid. So I think that's more of a New York thing, Mr. Softy. I mean, everywhere's got ice cream trucks, but I think Mr. Softy is a New York thing.
I wasn't sure because way back in the day, Eddie Murphy did a whole bit about it, and it seemed to play everywhere. So I figured maybe they have it other places. Maybe it's a big city thing. I don't know if small towns have Mr. Softy. I don't know. Maybe it's just an urban. It did a whole bit. It was so true about how you'd hear that sound, and your mother would be like, "I got a whole box of ice cream right in the freezer."
Yeah, right,
You're
exactly.
like, "I don't want that ice cream."
Right. Yeah, well, that's,
Very
I mean,
true.
the thing about the ice cream truck is it really is aggressive marketing because
really
it sings
is.
the song. There's
And
no
then-
way to
and
hide
then
that from the kid that it's there.
Exactly.
you know?
That's the whole thing. That's the whole
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah.
Once you hear that, you don't want that Briar shit.
You have to time it where, like, you make the kid take a shower, right?
Yeah, right.
So that they
Right when
can't
they're
eat
going to
it.
come. Well, that's why
Exactly.
the smart Mr. Softy people never show up at the same exact time.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
It's a
Yeah,
little
Jezzy
unpredictable.
says she's not heard of Mr. Softy.
Never heard of
I've
it?
never heard of Mr. Softy. So I don't know where you're from, Jezzy. But yeah, so maybe some people haven't heard of it. Maybe it is a New York thing, or maybe it's a big city thing. I'm not sure. But anyway, I was nervous about the sound here in my new place because my neighbors downstairs sometimes hang out outside and play music. And then when I recorded my Tucker monologue a few days ago, they were doing landscaping at the complex, and somebody was like weed whacking right outside. But luckily, this mic is pretty good at isolating the sound, so it wasn't an issue. So now the truck has moved on. We are moved on here. We have a very full program for you all tonight. Thank you all for being here. 230 in here already. Big crowd in here early. Thank you guys for being here. Hit that like button. Please hit that subscribe button as well.
We're getting different feedback on Mr. Softy. Somebody said the Murphy bit worked because everyone has ice cream trucks, so it didn't matter if you had Mr. Softy.
Yeah,
You got
I was
gist
thinking
of the
that
bit.
same thing.
But then somebody here says that there was a Mr. Softy truck. Here, we'll just throw it up. They used to come to their tiny town in Luzerne County, but someone threw a chestnut at it. That's what I'd expect from you people down there in Pennsylvania.
Yeah, Pentuck. Well, I think Luzerne is Luzerne like part of the Scranton area.
I'm not sure.
I think that's
I'm
part
not
of the
sure,
Scranton
honestly.
area, which is
Yeah, I
kind
don't
of
know.
Pentucky, kind of. But Scranton's a decent sized town. All righty. So let's get into some headlines. We have a lot to cover tonight. There was a lot of news this week, obviously, a lot of big stuff that we're going to be talking about this evening, but we do have some headlines that we want to talk about. First, I already forgot what Russell wanted me to set this up as, but this is called a segment that we are starting tonight. This is the inaugural segment of You Are Gonna Burn in Hell, and we will save this for the appropriate times when a truly repugnant person passes away.
You're gonna burn in hell. I'll burn in hell.
People were asking me why I grew my hair tonight. It was all for that. That was it. Now I'm going to get a haircut tomorrow.
That was it. I'm sure I got to go back and watch the replay. I didn't see.
Well, I don't have a barber up here. I just moved. For those of you, oh, by the way, what does everybody think of my yearbook photo backdrop? Set is back. The set is built again.
It's back.
So we're now fully moved in. The set, the cloth backdrop's helping the echo too, so that's a great thing.
You can see how much your patron money is improving our production values.
Yeah, exactly. We got the yearbook photo backdrop back up and built. But I don't know of a barber up here yet, that is reasonably priced and decent. Obviously, I'm not the kind of guy who requires a good barber since I don't maintain a hairstyle. I cut it short, grow it long kind of thing.
Yeah.
But you still want a men's haircut for less than $20. Like, I don't want to pay more than $20 for a haircut. So I got to scope out where I can go. But I will, and I'll have shorter hair pretty soon because the weather's getting warm and the long hair is getting annoying.
You move up to a town like that, you got to find a guy who wears like the white shirt with the like shirt suspenders there.
I mean, maybe things have changed since you were here because Russell went to school up in Albany and I'm in the Albany area right now. And let me tell you something.
How are you, young fella? Looks like you could use a trim.
There's a lot of people here. I mean, there's a lot of stuff here. I mean, between Albany and Schenectady, you're looking at a metro area and the surrounding towns.
Oh, yeah, sure.
You're looking at a metro area, probably about 200,000.
Look,
So,
I went up there for the Roger Waters Wall tour. I don't know, man. It's probably about 7 years ago. And it definitely got a lot rougher. It was very strange. It was very strange because I remember it when it was still pretty nice there. It was still pretty prosperous.
Well, you went to college in the 90s, right? So it was, it was deindustrialized to an extent then, but not to the extent.
Well, you know what happened while I was in college? IBM pulled out of the area. So I felt like when I came back all that time later, this was the aftermath.
Yeah.
But I was there when IBM left.
I mean, all these river cities are the same from New York up to Newburgh, my old home, up to Poughkeepsie, Kingston, all the way up to Albany. New York City suffered the same thing. The only difference is there's so much capital there that they could adjust quickly and reinvent. Whereas these other smaller
they didn't adjust quickly. That's why New York went bankrupt in the 70s.
No, but what I mean is they adjusted quicker. That like Newburgh never recovered. Newburgh is still a slum.
Yeah.
Poughkeepsie is still really and not in terrible shape, but not in great shape. Kingston, same thing, just starting to rebound now. Albany, same thing. So
you see, I think when I was up there, it was on the decline, but it wasn't there yet.
Right.
It takes time for an area to like totally hollow out.
Sure.
So there were still enough families and people who had been there for a long time who maintained their houses, and it was still a nice small town vibe.
Well, speaking of rotting and dying, good news here. And look, I don't gloat at people's demise. Even pretty bad people, I tend to lay off when they pass away. There's very few people who I actually celebrate the passing of. But if this is not cause for celebration, I don't know what is. Woman whose accusation led to the lynching of Emmett Till has died at 88, the coroner says. Carolyn Bryant Donham, who escaped indictments related to this case as recently as 2007. Right. So for everybody who thinks we've made a ton of progress, I mean, yes, we've made much progress in some ways, not so much. I was actually in Mississippi in 2007, oddly enough. I didn't know. I was a 20-year-old kid at the time doing a video project. So I had blinders on and was very sleep deprived. I didn't know what was going on in the news much those days. But she got off for this, 50 years after the fact. 2007, right. Mississippi. Yep. Never paid a price for her role in the just absolutely obviously horrific murder of Emmett Till, and now she is finally has passed away at the age of 88. But yeah, no one involved in that ever had to pay for it. So
nope, not the two. It was her husband and her brother, I believe, who dragged him out of bed.
Who dragged him out of
14 years old.
Yep.
Beat him, threw him in the river. I can't think of a better person for our inaugural "You're Gonna Burn in Hell" segment than this woman.
Yeah, and like I said, I reserve these. Like Russell's going to want to do these a lot more than I am, because I don't tend to do that. Like I don't tend to gloat at people's demise, even bad ones. Like basically Bush administration officials.
Yeah, I'm not going to do it to
like
everybody. I mean, like Kissinger. Like when Kissinger dies.
Well, yeah, that's what I mean. Like real foreign
I'm not
policy
going to do
villains.
it to everybody. No.
How's my audio now? Is it better? I just realized I had a feature on. You can still hear me?
Yeah.
All right, good.
Yeah,
all right.
you're there.
I just had an echo cancellation feature.
I have a new camera, by the way, folks. So
yeah, Russell's got a new camera.
I shouldn't be max headrooming. Yeah. I actually spent more than $30 on this one. So
yeah. No, but I will save it. Like when Rumsfeld died, I had some bad words about that. That's fitting. Obviously, when Kissinger goes, we'll do that. And obviously people like this, even Colin Powell, I think I had a few nasty things to say, same thing.
See, I wouldn't have put him in the burn in hell segment. Would I put him in? I don't think so. I don't think I see. So
he's still a conspiring mass murderer. I know he was.
So here goes your whole theory.
Well, no,
here goes your whole theory that I would do this more than you would.
He's still a co-conspirator.
Apparently, you're the commandant at the camp
Iraqis.
who sends them to the chambers more than I do.
Yeah, I mean, Colin Powell was like the Bobby Bacala of the Bush cabinet. The so-called nice one. Yeah, whatever. Okay, he's still profiting off of the mass murder of people who wanted no trouble whatsoever. So no, he would not get a pass.
I don't.
Sorry, go ahead.
He also worked to cover up the My Lai massacre. He had a long history of being a yes man to power. I guess with Powell, I see some complexities around race. Honestly, I feel like, especially at the time that he came up in the military, I think he got into the habit of kowtowing to powerful white people around him in order to advance, and he never broke the habit. I think that's why I wouldn't put him in the burn in hell segment.
Well, you know who I might exempt from the burn in hell segment is John McCain, but apparently Donald Trump would not exempt him from such a segment, because our second headline of the night here, Trump bashes John McCain's funeral in new book. Much like his wars, it never ended. He put...
Now that is a nice transition.
That's a nice transition. Exactly. Made that happen. Donald Trump's contempt for Senator John McCain in life and death is on full display in his new $95 coffee table book called Letters to Trump. Let me show you this book. My kids are obsessed with the bookstore. They love going to Barnes & Noble and looking half at books, half at toys. Well, bookstores are half toy stores now. I mean, it's half of its toys, half of its books. So they like both. But I've been spending a lot of time at the bookstore lately, and I've seen this, and I've never bothered to check the price, but it is a huge book. If you see right here, President Donald J. Trump, Letters to Trump. It's a giant, big coffee table book. And apparently he took a shot at John McCain's funeral in this. I threw him the world's longest funeral. He has a thing. This is a New York thing. Perhaps it's like a neurotic New York quality. He has a thing about funerals taking too long. I remember at Diamond's funeral from Diamond and Silk. He appeared as like, yeah, they told me 45 minutes. I don't know. Been here almost 3 hours already. Like, he has a thing about funerals, taking too long. I guess his idea is, all right, look, you lived, you died. That's it. All right, we're here. Yes, we're sorry for your loss. They were a great person. All right, that's it. We're done. Enough is enough. That's a very New York kind of sentiment.
Yeah, he's going to want to send off like a pharaoh. He's going to want that to go on for like a month with feasts, competitions, jousts.
Yeah, right. He'll be programming that while he's on his deathbed. Yeah, he will want a proper send-off, I'm sure. So maybe he is being a bit of a hypocrite there. Got to admit that. But yeah, taking a shot at John McCain. Much like his wars, it never ended. But see, McCain is a person who I would probably spare from that segment. You know what I mean? I wouldn't put him in the burn in hell camp.
No, I don't think I would either.
Now, if he became president, I probably would have, because there would have been a war with Iran.
There
would have been a lot more blood on his hands.
There would have been countless wars.
Exactly. So they would have been different. He dodged
also
a bullet
with McCain,
in a way, he's probably glad he lost. This way, we don't have to include him in our burn in hell segment.
as much of a psycho war hawk as he wound up being, I can never get around the fact that the Vietnamese offered him the opportunity to go home and he wouldn't leave without his men. I can't get around that. Because I can't imagine what it would be like to make a choice like that after you've already been brutally tortured.
Yeah. No, indeed. All right. Should we do headline number 3 here? Moving right along.
Hang on. I was promised.
Oh, that's right. I forgot.
Drugs.
I forgot.
I was promised drugs.
All right. Well, here, what we're going to do then
segment.
is, okay, so then what we're going to do then is we're going to do the Patreon scroll. While we do this, we're going to shout out our patrons. We got a big crowd in here. You can go to patreon.com/DueDissidence to help support the show. Jezzy, you are on the scroll tonight. I apologize because you sent me an email saying, hey, I'm not on the scroll yet. I was under the impression that you were on there, just not as Jezzy. I was under the impression that you changed your screen name. There was another viewer of ours who changed their screen name, and so that's why I got confused about that. So I apologize, but you are on the scroll. You're the last one on the second scroll. So we're going to start the scroll right now. Thanks to all of our patrons. You are the backbone of the show. Go to patreon.com/DueDissidence. But right now, while that scroll is happening, Russell is about to taste item number 2 in his boycott Starbucks dissident sweepstakes. So go ahead.
This is how honest I am. I really wanted my coffee, but I promised I would try it in front of you. So this week, a lot of you broke-ass motherfuckers have been suggesting Cafe Bustelo. Honestly, I was skeptical, but Keaton backed you up. He said it was good. So we're going to give it a try. It was actually on sale when I went to the supermarket, so it was almost meant to be. All right,
I do like it.
So this is my first.
All right, hold on. Before you taste it, now I'm gonna predict that you like this less than the San Francisco Bay, because man of the people you are, you tend to be slightly shit libby in your coffee tastes.
How do you know?
I could tell, because first of all, the Starbucks French roast, that's enough of a tell. And then the San Francisco Bay, that's a tell. What is it? Little too much, well, probably a little too strong, with not enough flavor to compensate. And so, okay, but not the winner. Is that what you're going to say?
Yeah. I mean, it's a little acidic. It's a little bitter. That's pretty much what I expected. It's not really I like a smooth cup of coffee. I like it smooth. Like this is a little whatever. It's very generic. It's not like something. Okay, this is what I would say. It's good for generic coffee. Right. It's not as nasty as it's drinkable. It's not like that New England coffee I had a couple weeks ago that inspired all this.
Yeah, I would say it's kind of it's like a Yingling. A Yingling is a good beer for a cheap everyday beer. Like it's better than a Bud. It's better than a Coors. But it's not like a craft beer. It's not a great
that's it. Like if I had to drink this every day, I wouldn't be like, oh my God, this is like I had to give up good coffee forever. Yeah, I could live with it, but it's not what I would call good coffee. It's all right.
There you go.
It's all right. It's drinkable.
Drinkable. It's got drinkability. There you go. That's what I figured. See, I called it. See?
You did.
I know you better than you think I do.
Well, no, because usually that's the kind of thing that you find out from hanging out with somebody day to day, which we obviously don't get to do.
No, but I could tell first the fact that you were an everyday Starbucks drinker. I mean, come on, right there.
I realized how I wound up drinking it because really I don't set foot in Starbucks.
No, I know you don't drink Starbucks at Starbucks.
No, you know what? I got in the habit of buying whatever was on sale at the supermarket.
Right.
And it was on sale. And I was like, oh, shit, this is a lot better than the shit I've been drinking, man. So then I wound up getting in the habit of drinking it.
Right. Yeah, you can fall into a habit that way. Are we getting any more recommendations? I know we have a bunch of recommendations here.
Well, we've got a lot. The next one, because they also have this at my supermarket. It's a Swiss brand, Javelli or something.
Oh, Javalia. Yeah.
Javalia, yeah. That one I could probably do next because I don't have to order that. Once we get beyond that, I either have to go to the Whole Foods on 125th or I have to order it from Amazon, which the money's going to the same place.
Right, yeah, exactly. Right, same thing. Two versions of the same thing there. All right, let's do some super chats here. Patrick Donahue, thanks for the $10, my friend. AOC is there to gaslight people into a counter-revolutionary party to avoid an actual revolution. Yeah, this came in before we even started. It's her modus operandi. The more I see of her, the more I feel she's a plant of sorts. Well, we will get into that soon, my friend. I don't know if you're staying up because I know you are over there in Ireland. But that is our first main segment of the night, so we should be at that in not too long. But thank you for the donation. Ellen, thanks for the $5. So much for Believe Women, correct? Oh, you mean for the Emmett Till thing? Well, yeah, obviously you made that point when we talked about this, when we talked about Andrew Callahan, which, by the way, where are all the Andrew Callahan defenders now? Where'd you all go? Oh, nowhere? Nowhere? No one, notice, no one cares about him anymore. No one gives a shit about him anymore. No one has a nice thing to say about him anymore. Everybody said, oh, I was premature. I jumped on. No. I researched it plenty. I knew what the hell I was saying. And it turns out I was right. They all went away. They all ran away. They ran away like scared little boys and girls.
All right. Can I answer some of the coffee questions and commentary?
Sure. Thanks, Tusker, for the $2. Appreciate it.
Okay, so yes, yeah, man. I mean, I used to live in the East Village across the street from a Cuban grocery. I know that they use the Bustelo for espresso. There are people here saying it's really good for espresso. Kinky says that. Yeah, maybe. You know, I drink drip coffee. People are asking me if I use anything in my coffee. Milk and sugar. I'm one of those. I'm a milk and sugar person.
Coffee regular. Coffee regular.
Coffee regular. I'm a regular guy. And a lot of people are mentioning because you mentioned Yingling. So just to tell you, it's just a funny little side note. We didn't want to bother doing a segment on this, but yeah, Bud Light, we have some numbers. The sales have tanked 17% since the boycott started. Predictably, Miller Lite is one of the big beneficiaries. Their sales are up, I think, 17%. On Miller Lite, so they kind of picked it up. But Yingling is picking up a lot also because they got made fun of because first they started drinking. Some of them went for Coors Light, and they were like, "Well, you know, they sponsor the Pride Parade too," so they all went to Yingling because they contribute to Republicans.
Oh, is that true? I didn't know Yingling.
Apparently, I didn't know that either. So a lot of them are going over to Yingling and Miller Lite. So yeah, Bud Light is taking it on the chin, man.
Taking it on the chin a little bit. Counselor Guy, thanks for the $2. I'm a new patron. You guys are excellent. Well, thank you, Counselor Guy. We appreciate that. How new? Just new right now? Let me check my email. How new are you? Did I put you in the scroll yet? Oh, Counselor Guy. Yeah, literally 9 minutes ago you just signed up. All right, well, we'll add you to the scroll, my friend. Thank you so much for joining. We appreciate that very much. Long story short, Russ, you don't have a hipster coffee joint by you? No, he's got worse. He has a Dunkin' Donuts that charges $42 for a box of Joe and a dozen donuts.
You know what? And I was in Krispy Kreme the other day because I was curious if that would have been cheaper. And you would have spent $38. It would have been a little cheaper, but not much. And after the tax, I don't even know if it would have been cheaper.
I mean, it makes sense when you think about it with inflation. I mean, a box of Joe is what, like 15 cups worth? So if they retail the cups for $3 a shot, they're not going to give you that good a deal on a box of Joe because then why not just buy a whole box? Right? They're going to have to rake you over to Kohl's for the box. Now, the donuts, I don't know how they're marking them up. That I don't know.
In answer to the question about the hipster coffee, Harlem is very weird, man. I'm living in the Harlem of Harlem. So if you go a few blocks up from me, there are hipster coffee shops. And if you go a few blocks west of me, over by City College, there are hipster coffee shops. But right where I am, no. I have to walk about 10 blocks.
Yeah. Yeah, I had some hipster coffee shops. I mean, I lived in Williamsburg and Greenpoint, so they were everywhere. But there's a taste to that urban hipster coffee. Like all urban hipster coffee has that same kind of taste. It's very weird. Like I could tell when I recommended Green Mountain and one of your, somebody said, well, no, Green Mountain's no good. Green Mountain is not that. It's brewed in Vermont, obviously.
Right, right.
And then a lot of the coffee's brewed, or I shouldn't say brewed, grown in Vermont. You brew it right there. That's the thing I always say. Oh, yeah, it's brewed in Vermont. No, it's roasted in Vermont, made in Vermont. They send the beans to you, right?
Right.
But yeah, no, it's a kind of similar taste. A little bit of a burnt taste, a little bit of a stronger taste. But the key is to get that flavor out of the bean without the burnt bitterness. That's the key. That's the key.
I mean, really, as I drink this, it's not bad. Like it's not, it's all right. Like I could see why people recommended it.
I see Counselor Guy asking how do patrons call in. So on the emails that we send out, and you'll see now that you're a patron, you have access to all those posts that are unlocked. There will be an invite link to the meeting. So if you want to call in and say hello, we would love to meet you. Just so the patron callers do know, we're going to start taking the callers more towards the end of the shows, but definitely towards the end of the segment. So if you're waiting on hold for a little while, don't mind us. We just have to get the segments in the can so that we can cut those and put them out on YouTube as segments, and then we'd be happy to admit you guys. All right. So just a program note there. All right, let's move on. I had a segue idea for this one too, obviously, but I forget exactly what it was, but we don't need one. This guy really needs no introduction. He is the subject of our upcoming documentary film. He's not here on the show with us tonight, but we are going to play Jose Vega's latest intervention in New York City. This was on the executive editors for the New York Times, the Los Angeles Times, Reuters, and the Washington Post. He wandered in to their meeting and asked, hey, where's Cy Hirsch? Why aren't you guys talking about him?
Oh, is this the lecture hall with Seymour Hirsch? I'm looking for the one with Seymour Hirsch because it's a policy and press hall event. So shouldn't we be talking about the Nord Stream since that's the biggest story of the century? And you guys, I'm sorry. I mean, you have the executive editor of the New York Times there who came out with a phony story to try and block Seymour Hirsch. It's just kind of funny how that happened, I mean, did you even acknowledge Seymour Hirsch? All of you are executive editors of papers that broke Pentagon, My Lai, Watergate. Is this the same papers or not? I mean, is there anything you've gotten right in the last 20 years, or am I mistaken about that? I mean, it's just kind of funny because Iraq, wrong, Syria.
Yeah, he did get a couple chuckles, a couple of them. And then you start hearing some of the
on the
detractors.
campus of Columbia University. If I had known about it, I would have gone. These kids, they have to start telling me when they're going to do these things.
Yeah, I have to have Jose loop you in. He could DM you. Yeah, this was.
I would have gone. There's like a mile from me.
Yeah, it's not far at all.
Wrong. Russiagate, really wrong. Okay, I mean, the list goes on and on. So the last thing you could do to try and actually fix your reputation is acknowledge that through leaks, we had to find out that Zelensky was going to bomb Moscow on the anniversary. I mean, if you're so impartial, shouldn't you at least say, right, that Zelensky was going to bring us on the verge of World War III? That seems pretty fair. While Julian Assange rots in prison, all of you've got, fat checks because he's in jail for doing your job. And you know what? Tucker Carlson ain't no Seymour Hirsch, but he did something you guys are scared to do. Speak the truth and actually be critical of the war, which is why he was actually fired from Fox, because you are all cowards. Every single one of you. None of you have actually had any relevancy. And you know what? The mainstream press is now dying. Nobody's ever going to listen to you again. You have no credibility with the public.
What's funny about this is that he actually kind of has the audience hanging on what he's saying. Like, you could tell the audience here is not nearly as hostile as they were in the Pelosi thing, because this is a press event. Now, yes, the mainstream press, yes, the New York Times trash, WAPO trash, Reuters mostly trash, LA Times mostly trash. But people at a press event tend to be a little smarter than like the morons who line up for a Nancy Pelosi, Paul Krugman circle, right?
Yeah, they're
so they're not quite as hostile to him because they're just. I think there are way more IQ points in that room than there are at most of these. Most of these are like town halls for fawning idiots for like politicians.
Well, that's the thing. They're not necessarily as absolutely fanatically partisan.
Right.
And devoted to these political personalities.
Right.
When you go into the rooms they usually go into, you're walking into Jehovah's Witnesses and going,
right. Yeah, exactly.
It was all plagiarized.
Right, exactly. Exactly. Whereas here you could say, I noticed one person just posted in the chat, notice this is the one video of his where you don't really need the subtitles because you can hear them. And that's because they're actually listening. Right?
Yeah,
right,
it's true. It's true.
I have to say are elite assholes who have nothing productive to say anymore, and it's dying off. So, will you at least say something, either about Nord Stream or Ukraine or the fact that Zelensky brought us to the verge of World War III, and the only reason we knew about that was through leaks? Go ahead. It's a free speech event, right? You guys are the press. Let's say something here. Mr. Khan, come on. You're the executive editor of the New York Times, I'm just trying to get into some good trouble here, man. Woo. Listen, Karen, get out of my face for a second. I got to talk to these gentlemen. I just want to hear what they have to say. Go ahead, I'm done.
Wait your turn.
You're not telling to you. Come.
Look at her.
You could project if we can't.
Is that the lady from the Trump arraignment thing? Did she grow her hair out? Is that the one? Is the one who you ran into also? She seems pretty up in his space there.
It's important to hear everybody's point of view.
Yeah.
So thank you.
All right.
I do think that we need to give our moderator a chance to ask other questions.
We're on the verge of World War III.
Some of the people in the audience also do so. Thank you. Really, thank you.
Say something about this bombing. We blew up the Nord Stream pipeline. Listen, don't stand there while there are people rotting in prison. Nobody said anything about Uhuru, right? The socialists who are in jail for being critical of this war. God damn it.
Oh, there you go.
Let's go.
At least say something about the people in jail for being critical of this war. They don't deserve to be in prison right now.
Fucking balls on that kid, man.
Oh,
Jesus.
Yeah.
Jesus. Wow. Jose Vega may not be the hero we asked for, but God damn it, he's the hero we need.
Yeah. No, he's great. I mean, he's great. That was once again just, terrifically well done. Look, the press does need to hear that, obviously.
Yeah.
I mean, the biggest failing, I would argue, of all the institutional failures that have plagued this country over the last 30 years, I don't think any has failed harder and more often than the mainstream media, the mainstream press, and that counts TV, but also print media, right? Like everyone on that stage.
Well, because its purpose is no longer to inform, it's to give marching orders.
Right.
It's to tell you what you're supposed to say and what parameters your opinions are supposed to function within. It's telling you what being good little boys and girls means. That's what they're there for. Because when I look at the people who follow it, that's all I hear from them. You know what? I'm canceling Twitter because the misinformation. It's really bothering me. Where did you hear that? Who told you to think that way? Is that an opinion you arrived at on your own? Have you really dug into that? Have you thought about the fact that these people are telling you with a straight face, as Jose is pointing out, we don't know who did the Nord Stream pipeline, but you're worried about Twitter. Twitter is the thing that's spreading dangerous misinformation, not your government. Not the same newspapers that told you to think this way. They're not there for news. If they were there for news, there'd be consequences for how often they get everything wrong. Because people, would you buy a car that always breaks down? Would people keep buying that brand of car? Of course they wouldn't. So it's von Clausewitz. There are no contradictions. When you think you found a contradiction, check your premises. So if you're looking at it and saying, why would people keep buying news that's constantly wrong? Well, then your premise that they're looking for news must be wrong. So they're looking for something else if they continue to consume this. So what are they looking for? They're looking for conformity. They're looking for signals about what you're supposed to believe to pass yourself off as, if not elite, elite adjacent.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And that's absolutely who was in that room. And they don't get to hear from ordinary people too much. And so, yeah, fantastic job, Jose, once again. And for those who do not know, we interviewed Jose for our first documentary film that we are producing. We are going to begin the editing process of that pretty shortly. We hope to have that film out about a month or so, probably looking at mid-June would be my guess. Perhaps a little bit after that, depending on how things go. But one of the things we've been putting out for our Patreon supporters this month is some early behind-the-scenes footage. We put out some really juicy stuff, actually, just a couple days ago. For our Patreon supporters, that'll be coming out for our paid Substack subscribers tomorrow morning as well. So if you sign up for our Substack or patreon.com, obviously, you get some bonus footage from that documentary interview shoot. We shot about 4 hours worth of footage, only about 45 minutes of it's likely to make it in the final cut of the film. So there's a lot to see. And Patreon members will get to see just about all of it, just about everything we shot. They will get to take a look at as time goes on. But yeah, we did release a couple of clips for you guys just this last week that I thought were quite good. So yeah, if you can help us out there, once again, patreon.com/DueDissidence. And we hope to have that documentary film finished in about 6 to 8 weeks, hopefully.
Yeah, what really struck me spending, and I hope that comes across in the documentary, I'm sure it will, with a lot of the stuff we shot with him. It's my, coming kind of from the rough side of the tracks, and then going to college, and then going into the arts. What has always been my experience is a lot of the most brilliant people you'll ever meet are not people you're going to meet in institutions, because a lot of the people who are really brilliant, they can't fit in to those places. They don't have an interest in those places. They're not going to conform to the standards of those places. I've met much more interesting people on the street than I ever met in school, or honestly, that I ever met in the theater.
Right.
Jose, he's a brilliant guy. When he was in high school, he was the head of a robotics team. It's very unusual that you have that kind of intelligence, and you also have the gift for interpreting the humanities that he has, and that he would come out and listen to what he shouts at these people. He knows his stuff. He's really knowledgeable. He has a great, he's studied very broadly in these subjects. And the fact that he does not get rattled in those circumstances is just the courage.
Yeah, there's no nerves, no nothing. He has it all prepped, and he just goes. Yeah.
Get out of my face, Karen.
Yeah, all right, Karen, get out of my face. I'm trying to talk to these guys here. Yeah.
Wow. Just that is to quote Hunter Thompson, that's one of God's own prototypes right there.
Indeed. No question about it. All right, we got one more headline. This is sort of a prologue to our first of the main segments here. Before we do that, let me just knock these out. Coca-Cola, thanks for the $2. Yingling Black and Tan is good. Yeah, that is pretty good. I haven't had one of those in a long, long time, but yes, I do remember liking those. Courtney, thanks for the $5. Courtney, they teach in schools that critical thinking means referencing credible sources, which only includes MSM and bought and paid for other major sources. Yeah, I know. They make you do the works cited page with all the official studies from the journals, and you got to go read 40 pages of horse shit. I never did that. I would always just read the conclusion. Like they'll write a 40-page paper, and they'll put on page 1 what the conclusion is. All right, so that's all I got to read then. What I got to read the 40 pages for? If you're going to sum it up on page 1, I may as well just read that. Professors never knew the difference. They're fucking dumb. But anyway, let's keep going here. Tucker Carlson was fired on Monday, and we have put out a couple of little takes on that. Russ did one.
He's going to be on the show Sunday.
Yeah, right, exactly. Yeah, he'll be
his
filling
first in-depth interview.
Yeah, we got an exclusive with Tucker. No, we each put our takes out. Russ the same day that he was fired, and then I wrote a little Substack piece that I sort of reinterpreted into a monologue on here. So those who follow us closely know kind of our initial takes on this. But Tucker himself surfaced yesterday night with a little good evening message to his social media followers. Let's hear it.
Good evening, it's Tucker Carlson. One of the first things you realize when you step outside the noise for a few days is how many genuinely nice people there are in this country. Kind and decent people who really care about what's true, and a bunch of hilarious people also, a lot of those. It's got to be the majority of the population, even now. So that's heartening. The other thing you notice when you take a little time off is how unbelievably stupid most of the debates you see on television are. They're completely irrelevant. They mean nothing. In 5 years, we won't even remember that we had them. Trust me, as someone who's participated. And yet at the same time,
trust me, I got rich on this shit.
The undeniably big topics
he was already
rich. That will define our future get virtually no discussion at all. War, civil liberties, emerging science, demographic change, corporate power, natural resources. When was the last time you heard a legitimate debate about any of those issues? It's been a long time. Debates like that are not permitted in American media. Both political parties and their donors have reached consensus on what benefits them, and they actively collude to shut down any conversation about it. Suddenly, the United States looks very much like a one-party state. That's a depressing realization, but it's not permanent. Our current orthodoxies won't last. They're brain dead. Nobody actually believes them. Hardly anyone's life is improved by them. This moment is too inherently ridiculous to continue, and so it won't. The people in charge know this. That's why they're hysterical and aggressive. They're afraid. They've given up persuasion. They're resorting to force. But it won't work. When honest people say what's true, calmly and without embarrassment, they become powerful. At the same time, the liars who've been trying to silence them shrink, and they become weaker. That's the iron law of the universe. True things prevail. Where can you still find Americans saying true things? There aren't many places left, but there are some, and that's enough. As long as you can hear the words, there is hope. See you soon.
See you soon. Bit of foreshadowing there. I wanted to play that all the way through without cutting it off. But he says a couple things there. And look, we could speculate all night where is he going to go next? Is he going to go to Rumble? Is he going to go to one of these bigger outlets like, a Daily Wire type thing? He already has his Daily Caller thing, which is, I mean, it's an
RT.
outlet. Yeah, but it's yeah, right. Yeah. RT. Right. I mean, his Daily Caller platform, I mean, yeah, it's his, but it's kind of too small for him. He's already outgrown that, in much in the same way that he's outgrown Fox even, and that's kind of what you get a sense of him talking there when he talks about how the orthodoxies that represent the sort of two combating schools of thought here in mainstream discourse are brain dead. They're actually believed by very few people. That was a version of the point that I made in my article, which is that the reason guys like Tucker had zeitgeist shows is the same reason why like Joe Rogan has a zeitgeist show, is because he's unpredictable and his ideas don't always conform to one of the two versions of what we think of as political sides, going toe to toe. That's why people hung on his word. That's why when Joe Rogan endorsed Bernie, it was news because we didn't see it coming. He was a guy who could have just as easily endorsed Trump. Right? He could have gone either way. And so when guys who could go either way, when they choose one way over the other, it catches people's eyes. It makes people think, okay, what made them do that? I'm not only interested in what they say, I'm interested in why they say it, because they have a thought process that doesn't conform to black versus white interpretations of the issues of the day. So that's what made Tucker interesting. I thought he hinted at that a little bit in that monologue, and then obviously some veiled shots at Fox News, right? Truth will prevail. The implication there is that they had problems with what he was saying, and which makes sense because he did stick out. Like, he didn't really fit in. I mean, he fit in the sense that he's more right wing than left wing, obviously. But beyond that, I mean, you know, if you put him in a lineup with Brian Kilmeade, Sean Hannity, Laura Ingraham, Greg Gutfeld, right, all their other sort of marquee stars, you know, he sticks out like a sore thumb. He's just of a different kind than they are.
Well, watching that monologue, you know, my first response was, where's the lie? Right? It's Tucker Carlson, you know, the people who are inclined to make him out to be the Antichrist. I mean, where's the lie? That was a more honest 2-minute assessment of where we are than anything that you're going to see on the cable stations now that he's off. And that's what made him compelling. I've been seeing a lot of people wrestling with, what they think about him since he got fired. You know, people on the left or ostensible left or left adjacent kind of trying to frame it. One theme I keep seeing come up that I do have to agree with is that he is not the same guy that he was 20 years ago. Like, is this Tucker Carlson, the weenie with the bow tie that Jon Stewart humiliated? No. His views have evolved. And he also did undergo a major shift when he lost most of his advertisers, probably not coincidentally. He probably felt a little liberated for that. How many of the people who pushed Iraq apologized? He apologized. He actually came out and apologized for that. I can't think of any other pundit who has apologized for the position that they took on Iraq. At best, they'll say, look, based on the information that I had, right. He just straight out talked about it in terms of having media brain and having been brainwashed himself into thinking a certain way. Sure, yeah, I don't agree with everything he says. Do you have to? Like, do you have to? Do you have to agree with everything that somebody says in order to give them props? Because that guy was going on TV at a moment that is at least as censorious as the McCarthy era, and basically going on and saying the equivalent of, why don't we make peace with Russia? As a conservative.
Right. Well, also, like, what is the difference whether you like the person or not? Like, I don't really understand the obsession with evaluating everybody's character and making that the end-all, be-all in terms of what their function in society is. Like, I don't particularly care if he's a good person or not. Right. I mean, there were issues that we disagreed with him on. We didn't play a clip of him talking about this, but we expressed strong disagreement with him. I know I did when we did the Brandon Johnson Chicago looting story last week. Like,
and
sure,
he covered that in a predictable way.
Right. I got no problem calling him out for that stuff.
Of course not.
I mean, why not?
Of course not. Well, that's it. You need to be a fanboy of people.
Right. Like, that doesn't affect my judgment of his Ukraine coverage at all. Like, who cares?
Right.
Like, what's the problem here? It's the same thing where, like, and we will get into the AOC stuff in a moment, but, like, people get hung up on, well, was AOC an op from the beginning, or did she go in with good intentions and sell out? I really don't care. When she went in there, she was protesting inside Nancy Pelosi's office, and now she's doing sit-downs with Jen Psaki. Like, what her character arc was, I guess it's interesting from a curiosity perspective, if you're interested in the personal stories of political leaders and things like that. But what Caitlin Johnston, in my opinion, she said it best. She's like, it does not matter what is in a politician's heart or mind. It just doesn't matter. All that matters is what they do. They're there to do things. They're there to vote. They're there to lead or not lead. And how they are performing is all that matters. You could drive yourself crazy about what their intentions were versus what they are. But ultimately, who gives a fuck? Same thing here.
Well, we're going to show later. We have some exclusive footage of something Pelosi said to AOC that we think might have been pivotal in turning her.
Exactly.
But yeah, and Tucker, I mean, I do understand why the libs rejoiced, because they're dumb as dog shit. They're just stupid people. These people on The View, you know, a point that this is very interesting. A point that conservatives always make, because The View drives them crazy, is in what way are the people who represent the conservatives on The View conservative? In what way are they conservative? And it's revealing, because it's not culture. They're not allowed to disagree with them on culture. And this is why the conservatives say, how are they conservative? It's economics. That's acceptable. It's acceptable for them to go on and not want to raise the minimum wage for the poor. It's acceptable for them to go on and want to cut Medicaid and Medicare. That's acceptable. But cultural differences, that's not acceptable. They're in lockstep on The View on that when they bring on these conservative voices. So they were all that footage has made the rounds a lot. They did a whole nah, hey, goodbye when Tucker left.
Right.
Are you an idiot? Like the only thing holding him back was his contract with Fox. Can you imagine what he's going to say now that he has nobody to answer to? Tucker doesn't have to worry about getting another job with a network. He could make a fortune just striking out on his own if he cares about that. And B, he's an heir to a fortune. He never needed the money. Right. He was born rich. He's going to stay that way.
Yeah.
He doesn't need you people. He doesn't need your approval. He can do whatever the fuck he wants. He has just become 10 times more dangerous to establishment narratives than he was last week.
Right. Because now what if he goes to Rumble? Which, by the way, Rumble, if you're listening to this, my advice to you, if you got to pull every penny out of your piggy bank to get him on that platform, it'll be the best investment
that will be the
ever
tipping point.
Made.
Yep.
That will be the tipping point.
If they get Tucker, that will be the tipping
now
point.
You have the #1 show in America on your platform. Right. He's going to be he'll be #1 no matter where he goes. People are not going to stop watching him. He'll be #1 no matter where he goes. So.
If anything, he's going to be better now.
Yeah.
He's going to be better because...
Right, because he won't have
supposedly
to toe as much of the Fox News bullshit. Like, he won't have to do any of that. Like, when you're on Fox News, yeah, he could drop a red pill here and there, but ultimately, hey, your prime time on Fox News, the demo for this is still septuagenarian, drunks. so you got to kind of give them what they want. Like, you can't go too far, Yeah. Now he doesn't have to worry. Now he does it on his terms.
Right. And that little video definitely seemed to suggest that he's going to go full Joker now. He's going to burn Gotham to the ground wherever he goes. So I don't know what libs were rejoicing about. I don't know. As you said in your very, very insightful monologue, this is the death of cable news. I mean, that's all it really marks out. Like, he was the last relevant person on cable news.
Right. No one on cable news. Nobody cares what Joy Reid, Chris Hayes, Rachel Maddow, Sean Hannity, Laura Ingraham. Nobody cares what any of these people have to say, because we already know what they're going to say before they say it. So what we got to watch them for.
Right. And we can say, so we have the tweet of the numbers of how Fox's ratings have been going since they made the brilliant move to get rid of their star and, really, let's face it, only attraction.
Yeah, indeed. Hold on, this isn't it. Sorry, my fault. See, look at this Twitter blue. See how you get to organize your bookmarks into folders? See, it's worth the $8 a month, is it not? There you go.
Yeah,
that was for you, Elon.
Don't make it so obvious.
That was for you, Elon. Paid. That was for you, Elon. Give you a little plug there, Elon. Twitter blue, folks. $8 a month. Become a patron, Elon. Become a patron. Yeah, become a patron.
You got call-in access.
Even it out a little bit. Right. Yeah, exactly. We give you $8, you give us $8. Yeah, exactly.
Watch, Elon is watching. This is going to be like the legendary night that the Beatles almost reunited on Saturday Night Live.
Yeah, exactly.
Elon calls in tonight. So yeah, hang on, I gotta go full screen on this.
It's all right. I got it. Fox News suffered a catastrophic drop in viewers after ousting Tucker. In the 8 p.m. time slot alone yesterday, Fox lost nearly 50% of total viewers and nearly 70% of viewers in demo compared to last Tuesday. Demo ratings were down across the board, impacting all shows. The 5 down 7, Special Report down 23, Jesse Waters down 35. The 8 p.m. slot, which was Tucker's, down 70%, 69%. Hannity minus 44, Laura minus 20. See what I tell you?
On Hannity
Drunks.
comes out of Tucker's show, right?
Comes out of Tucker's show.
Right. So they're all screwed. Although, interestingly,
I mean, what the hell does Hannity still have?
Fox still did better than any of the others.
Well, I mean,
he still did better than CNN and MSNBC, which, is just a statement on how terrible they are. Look at this. Joy Reid is one of their stars, and they're almost doubling Joy Reid's numbers. They're more than doubling Chris Hayes.
I shouldn't have the DMs open. Stupid. But yeah, it should. But look, this is the direction they're heading in now. Like they're heading towards that same irrelevance.
Right.
They're always going to outperform them because their audience skews older, which is what a TV audience is. They're older, right? Whereas the libs still have cocktail parties to go to at 8, 9 o'clock at night, whatever. Right. And Fox is still better TV than certainly CNN, and I would argue than MSNBC as well. But no, of course they're going to get hurt by this. Of course they're going to get massively hurt by this because, look, he was number one. And we used to ask ourselves a lot on this show. Like, I know I would ask myself, Russell used to ask himself, and we never uttered this out loud because I kind of answered the question for myself in my own head. Why is Tucker allowed to criticize the Ukraine war like this on the air? Why?
Right.
And I thought of it the same way. Why does Comedy Central let South Park get away with all their shit? Well, because they're number one.
Right.
They're a cash cow, man. Like when you're number one, you can get away with shit because what are you going to do? Bite the hand that feeds you? You got to keep him around if he's number one.
Well, but, in the end, these people have bigger interests. They have interest in defense companies. They have interest in oil companies. They have interest in maintaining the status quo. You're seeing a lot of misguided commentary that's comparing this to them getting rid of Glenn Beck and Bill O'Reilly. This is not the same thing. Glenn Beck went up there and did a Wolfman routine. He did the crazy drooling guy with the board and the yarn and the pins, and it was entertaining the way, if you put a camera in a padded cell, it would be entertaining. It was entertaining in that way. And then Bill O'Reilly just did the culture war stuff that would appeal to the old drunks. Yeah, and another thing, I went to Sylvia's and I was surprised nobody ordered the motherfucking iced tea. That was one of the best. I think it was Larry Wilmore who did that on the Comedy Central. Like he followed that up by going to Sylvia's going, I would like the motherfucking iced tea.
I'll have a large motherfucking iced tea.
You don't have motherfucking iced tea. So Bill O'Reilly was just that. He wasn't doing what Tucker's doing. He wasn't going on there and challenging Fox narratives. He just got busted because he was a pervert making dirty phone calls and biting women or whatever the sick shit he was doing. Whatever sick shit. I can't even remember.
But even Beck,
that's not the deal. And also, it was pre-Trump. It was different.
Yeah,
it was a different time.
Yeah, it was lower stakes. There were fewer eyes on you.
You could much more argue that the network was bigger than those hosts, but you can't make that case today with this host. You can't.
Right, not with this host, because he was a zeitgeist host. They've had stars before. Megyn Kelly was a star. She left, and she now does a show that's far more interesting than anything she said on Fox. I don't watch it regularly, but every once in a while I'll catch it. She says something worthwhile every now and then. Beck, same thing, right? I'm not a Glenn Beck fan. I hardly ever watch him, but every once in a while he'll come across your feed with something that surprises you a little bit. Don't forget, he's the guy who said, I'm going to go down to the border with soccer balls, right? Show compassion for the immigrants and stuff. Like, he will step outside the conventional sort of red-blue framing every once in a while. Whereas a hack like Hannity will never, ever do that. Hannity gets paid not to do that. I mean, Hannity is just a complete hack. It's incredible. Like, no one's cared what that guy's had to say since, like, October 2001. And he's still on there. But no, I mean, a lot of these guys who are on Fox, they leave and they get more interesting. That's my point.
I saw Beck once do a whole thing analyzing the architecture of Rockefeller Center for its communist symbols. And as a tour guide who's very, very knowledgeable about what those statues
it's like
mean.
The opposite.
Of course, Jesus Christ.
They
you
have
literally have Atlas.
They have Atlas there.
You have Prometheus, the ultimate symbol of capitalist endeavor and technology of that period. They were very much taking these classical models to celebrate capitalism and its achievements. That's what the whole complex is about. What the fuck are you talking about? You know, I mean, that was his whole show. But Tucker's not a clown like that. Tucker actually had a point of view that was so compelling. More Democrats watched him than watched their beloved Rachel Maddow.
Right.
He is a far more dangerous man outside Fox than he was inside Fox. So I don't know what the liberals are celebrating. They should have prayed that Fox kept him on the air.
Yeah, no, I think you are right about that. All right, we'll take some super chats and then we'll head into our first main segment, the AOC segment. Let's pick up where we left off here. Sinead, thank you for the $5. As a Washington Heights native in Los Angeles, I'm in heaven with the Bustelo and other New York City references. Thanks, guys. Well, thank you, Sinead. We are New Yorkers here.
Thank you.
Indeed.
Thank you.
Coca-Cola for Jose, LOL. Perfect. Thanks for the $2. Tusker, thanks for the $5. This was Tucker's claw gripping the Empire State Building. See you soon. Yeah, AOC self-fulfilling prophecy, so she can later claim victimhood. That's true. She did mention that in the video that we are going to play shortly. We are getting to it. Virtuoso, thanks, my friend, for the $5. Tucker is a living embodiment of the worst person you know. Made a great point. Meme. Yeah, close. I understand what you're saying there. This was not a super chat, and sorry, Russell, you might be caught completely off guard by this because I had no intention of covering this, but I did want to take this question because I want to tell you why I had no intention of covering this. Are you guys going to be covering Steven Crowder? No, I don't find Steven Crowder's divorce interesting.
I was going to say the divorce.
Yeah, it's not interesting. It's not my business. And what I will say is that it does seem that Candace Owens was insinuating that he was going through a hard time without explicitly saying it. And I got to say, for that, she is really a low-life, gossip-mongering sleazeball. Like, you don't do that if a guy's going through a divorce. And he has kids, he has twins.
I mean, what if they're going through a divorce because he's banging Candace Owens?
Well, that's a different story, but I doubt that very much.
That we would cover.
That we would cover. Look, I don't like Steven Crowder. It's not just that I don't agree with Steven Crowder. He strikes me as a pretty bad guy. But, Russell and I, we drop mob references on the show a little bit because we're both New York City people who ran New York City tours. We did Mafia tours. And one of the things we would bring up on the Mafia tours quite a bit, I know I would have to get into this quite a bit. And the same rule applies here. What did I say in the mob? You leave the families out of it. Families are off limits, right? Yeah. You don't drag someone for a divorce that they're trying to keep private. That's obviously very traumatic for him and his family. You just don't go there. And so, I'm not interested in talking about it. Like that's off limits. Like, you just lay off that.
I didn't even really, when I saw the headline about it, I wasn't even interested.
Yeah, no, exactly.
Like I haven't even delved into it.
But I had a feeling someone might ask us about that. So thanks for the question. Appreciate it. Zach, thanks for the $1.99. Didn't that fascist Sandy lady co-opt that protest? Sandy lady? Fascist Sandy lady co-opt what protest?
Yeah,
the Jose Vega protest that we just covered? Was there another protest that I'm not thinking about? I'm not sure, but Sandy lady.
I got it.
Are you talking about the lady who got in Russell's face at the arraignment protest? Maybe. Meteor Dreams, thanks for the $1.99. Rest in peace, Jerry Springer.
I was going to mention that because that came up so recently.
Yeah.
He passed away, and we owe a lot of the worst of what's on TV to Jerry Springer.
Yeah, so. Exactly. Yeah, he was definitely an influence.
Rest in peace. Rest in
He
peace,
definitely
my
made
friend.
his mark, Jerry Springer. All right. Excellent. So let's get it down to business.
And I'm just going to say, it takes a while for you to really get the sense of a cup. Yeah. I mean, it's like the best affordable coffee that I've had. I would say that.
Oh, there you go. See, so it's growing on him.
Like the Maxwell House Folgers. Like I would put it in
it's
that.
way better than
It's in
those.
that price class.
Right, but it's way better for the price than those.
Yes. It's the best cheap coffee I've ever had.
Yeah.
I'll
It's a
give
good
it that.
everyday coffee when you're on a budget.
Yeah.
All righty. Excellent. So over the weekend, hungover wine moms got an up and close and personal look at AOC when they tuned into Jen Psaki's new MSNBC show. During the interview, AOC was asked about Fox News' recent Dominion settlement. So that's what this answer is in response to. Fox News paying Dominion $787 million. Here's how she answers this.
And I believe that
Sorry, let me.
very often I believe that we leave to the courts to solve issues that politics is really supposed to solve, that our legislating is supposed to solve. We have very real issues with what is permissible on air, and we saw that.
Stop right there for a second. Let's just take this back. I want to take this back.
So sad. So
We
sad.
leave
She-
to the courts.
She doesn't even look the same. Like look at the makeup, look at the hair. It's like she is literally morphing into Nancy Pelosi.
Let me take this back. I just want to, but this is amazing.
There's like when people get possessed in the movie and they gradually begin
Well,
to
that's the Dorian
resemble
Gray
the demon.
thing, right? The age-old, yeah, exactly. All right, here we go.
Very often I believe that we leave to the courts
We leave to the
solve
courts
issues
to
that
solve issues
politics is
that
really
politics
supposed to
should
solve, that our
solve.
legislating is supposed to solve.
Legislating is
We have
supposed to
very real issues with what is permissible on air, and we saw that.
All right. Speech is not supposed to be solved through politics and legislation. There are certain things that should not be delegated to the courts, but there are certain things that must be delegated to the courts, such as speech. That is why we have a First Amendment. Let me just put this up on the screen. Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof or abridging the freedom of speech or the press. What does it say? Congress shall make no law. The Constitution explicitly says speech is not political. We do not legislate matters of speech. You have free speech. Now, there are egregious breaches of other people's liberties that you can violate with your mouth, i.e. threatening to hurt someone, right? And that crosses a very clear line. So yes, you have laws in the books against that.
However,
in a case like this, though, hold on, defamation, the reason why we settle defamation cases in court is because defamation is grayer. So defamation is punishable in court. There's a civil penalty to pay for that. But you have to go to court to prove to a judge that you have been defamed because we leave that area gray. We leave it gray precisely because it is a matter of speech. And you do not use legislation to govern speech. That's what the First Amendment says in plain English. So this is not only fascistic, but it is just completely ignorant of the most fundamental, I would argue, the single most fundamental constitutional principle there is in terms of at least the Bill of Rights, right? Is that you have free speech and government does not pass laws governing what you can say, absent an egregious breach of someone else's liberty, threats of violence, right? Fire in a crowded theater, threat to safety. Other than that, yes, we do leave it to the courts. Yes, we do. So you're just plainly wrong. Now, in terms of what's permissible on air, let me let her talk a little more because then, Russell, I know you have the answer there.
With January 6th, real issues with what is permissible on air. And we saw that with January 6th. And we saw that in the lead up to January 6th and how we navigate questions, not just of freedom of speech, but also accountability for incitement of violence. This is the line that we have to really explore through law as well. And
do you think media organizations are social media.
Sorry, do you want to step in here or let it go a little more?
Let it go a little more.
All right.
Platforms should be accountable for the.
And
do you think media organizations or social media platforms should be accountable for the role for being platforms for incitement?
I believe that when it comes to broadcast television, like Fox News, these are subject to federal law, federal regulation in terms of what's allowed on air and what isn't. And when you look at what Tucker Carlson and some of these other...
Right. Okay. So go ahead.
Okay. So Glenn Greenwald covered this, actually. It's nice we have so many lawyers in our space who can cover these things. Glenn Greenwald, Briahna Joy Gray. All right. So she's wrong on a multitude of levels here. She has no idea what the fuck she's talking about. Federal regulation applies to the public airwaves. That's broadcast television. That's ABC, that's CBS, that's not cable. There is no federal law that applies to cable. This is why you can see boobs on cable, but you do not see it on the public airwaves. That was part of the deal that they made when the government originally licensed out the airwaves to these various private companies. Now, they used to have much stricter quid pro quos in exchange for that privilege, like the equal time doctrine, where if you represented one political point of view on your show, you had to give time to the other. They also had to fulfill a certain amount of socially redeeming content or public service content. And that's what destroyed news. Reagan got rid of that standard, and all of the networks had seen the news as not a driver of revenue, but a fulfillment of that requirement to provide a certain amount of public service programming. So they left the news divisions more or less alone. After Reagan got rid of that, then they started looking at how they could make a profit off news. And that's when you stop having and that's the way it is today, September 17th. That's when you start getting the graphics and the quick editing. And that's when you start getting that, because they start trying to make it entertaining. They start trying to make it entertainment instead of public service. None of that applies to cable. So what she's saying is completely wrong. Now, something else that Glenn got into that I actually didn't know, I think most of us don't. The limitation on the incitement of violence, the bar is actually not as low as we think it is. The bar is actually pretty high. If you say in the abstract, and YouTube gods, I'm not saying this, but if you were to say in the abstract, this thing, if it were to happen, justifies violence, or this thing could lead to violence and that's justifiable, that actually has been found to be protected under the First Amendment. It is only if you say that guy down the street, go get him.
Right.
If you make an imminent threat of violence, if you incite people to imminently commit,
if you direct people to commit violence.
If you direct people to commit violence in a feasible, not even in an abstract way, not even in a go to the Middle East and
you
sign
have
up.
to say it explicitly.
Right. Right. So she's wrong on every level. Now, I saw Greg Foreman, actually, the Black conservative perspective guy. He said something that is very true at this point. It's very true post-Trump. When they say it's a threat to democracy, what they mean is a threat to Democrats.
Of course,
that's how they're defining threats to democracy. Now, what Greg Foreman, as a rule, is not going to get into, or not even as a rule, I've never seen him get into this, and I don't think he would, is, on the other side, the Republicans are trying to rewrite election laws all over the country so that they don't have to stand election. I don't want to make it out that the Republicans are great defenders of democratic process. They're both trying to rig elections. They have both lost interest in having fair democratic processes. They have different means of trying to make sure that they get a desired outcome. The Republicans, naturally, because of their advantage in state legislatures and governorships, they tend to take that route of trying to draw the congressional districts because they can. Whereas the Democrats have a lot of institutional power. They have a lot of power in media. They have a lot of power in institutions. So the track that they take to try to rig the system is to limit speech because they have feasible pathways to do that, to, at the very least, make speech culturally forbidden that would stand against them. They have the power to lean on Google, which is going to tend to be sympathetic, and see to it that they change their algorithm. Matt Taibbi actually just dropped an article about this today, about how in 2017, I mean, it was part of the article. He was talking about this subject overall, AOC and Tucker and all of this. So 2017, Google changed its algorithm. When was the last time you searched a subject and got Consortium News or got TruthDig, right? I used to get that all the time. I remember in 2016 when you'd be looking up sources, when you'd be fighting with the Hillbots, that stuff would come up all the time. They have rigged the game, and that was the point of Taibbi's article. They've rigged the game so that the things that are most visible are not what would organically be chosen by the public, because they had to change the algorithm to suppress what was actually chosen by the public. People were actually, especially on the left, much more interested in reading TruthDig. And I mean, if you remember this, when they changed the algorithm, all of those outlets came out and said, we've lost like 80% of our clicks. And that's why. When was the last time, even on Facebook, anything, when was the last time you saw anybody share a TruthDig article or a Consortium News article? You almost never see that unless somebody gives it to you directly. You'll almost never see it. And, you know, if you're somebody who likes that content, you probably used to get fed that content by the algorithm quite a lot. I know I did. And until I read the Taibbi article, I hadn't even thought about it. Yeah, when was the last time you saw that? So we've already been deeply censored. They've already decided that what people want to see, what they want to read, they're not allowed. That's already happened. Like when we talk about this like it's something that could happen, it's already happened by even Democracy Now! Has been suppressed in the algorithm. As a rule, when I do a search, Democracy Now! Doesn't come up. They're not as suppressed as some of the others, but they're definitely suppressed. The first hits you get are, you know, CNN, AP,
of course, yeah, it's all that.
Reuters. But it didn't used to be that way.
No, I know.
It didn't.
Of course.
You know, it's not like, well, sure, the shit libs read it. Shit libs don't read that stuff as much as we do. That's why Consortium News and all those used to be pretty high in the feed, because we're news junkies. People in this space tend to be news junkies.
Right.
So even if there are less of us, we're searching those articles more. So what AOC is saying here, I was just having this debate with somebody the other day who was saying, she asked me who I would pick for president. And I said, man, I'm out of that game. I'm completely not interested. She was like, well, but we live in a presidential republic, and the difference is there's one party that wants to take away rights. I said, yeah, absolutely. I couldn't agree with you more. And I, you know, sent her a link to Plaskett threatening Taibbi with jail. You know, it's again, I'm not saying the Republicans are the defenders of democracy, but neither are the Democrats. It's two different angles on the same anti-democratic tendency. And as people who are in the political commentary space, this is extremely dangerous. It's extremely dangerous that to have a party that is masking a anti-speech drive as a pro-democracy drive. I mean, it's very Orwellian, you know, ignorance is strength.
Yeah, well, she doesn't mask it too much. She didn't waste much time. We didn't waste much time celebrating in public after he was ousted. But let's play the end of this Psaki thing first.
Fox do, it is very, very clearly incitement of violence. Very clearly incitement of violence. And that is the line that I think we have to be willing to contend with.
Okay, well, first of all, no, that's not. I mean, even if what you're saying was true, which, as Russell explained there, it's really not. But even if that were true, that's not the line that you are contending with. You guys are going far beyond incitement when it comes to cracking down on speech. Far beyond. Far beyond. You're taking your cues from a daytime talk show watched by Xanax and Chardonnay mixing losers. You're taking cues from them. You have government officials watching Mehdi Hassan debate Matt Taibbi at 4 o'clock in the afternoon or whatever the fuck he's on, 6 o'clock, I don't know, 5, whatever it is, and saying, wow, he caught him in a mistake. Maybe I should send him a letter threatening him with 5 years prison on a perjury charge.
Right.
That has nothing to do with incitement. You guys are going way beyond that. So even if what you're saying there is true, it's bullshit in the sense that that's not where Democrats are drawing the line. We know this. This is out in the open now. And she says it. She says it. Should we go to the Instagram thing?
I was just going to say, if you're really going to make an argument that cable hosts, by arguing a point of view, are inciting violence, well, you don't think having a channel like MSNBC that has never seen a current event that they didn't want to blame on Nazis and white supremacy and attaching that to anyone who is politically on the other side, that's not inciting violence?
Well, that's
and I don't want that speech shut down, but if this is the standard you're setting, I mean, what do we do with Nazis? I mean, they're Nazis, right? What's not justified with Nazis?
Right. Well, look, I mean, this really gets to the heart of it, which is these people cannot imagine that or accept that other people just see the world differently from the way they do.
That's it.
Right. They just can't accept that. So the point where it never occurs to them, well, if you are going to call X opinion incitement, then someone who sees the world differently might see your opinion as incitement, even though it's not. Right. But they just, they cannot accept that. They cannot accept that.
One other thing I want to mention from the Taibbi article that's really funny, and good on him for catching this. So, Rob Reiner made that movie, The American President. And the main plot point was that his girlfriend had burned an American flag, I guess, in the past. And he stands by her and he gives a speech in a Rob Reiner film.
Right.
You want to show me that you believe in free speech? Stand in front of a man who is saying something that you have spent your entire life being opposed to and defend that man's right to speak. And he pointed out it was not long after that Rob Reiner is, appearing on MSNBC talking about how we have to, shut down all of this speech on Fox and the right wing and how dangerous it is. Clearly he forgot that he had penned those lines.
Yeah, indeed. All right, so she says that over the weekend. Tucker is fired on Monday, and then she comes out, I believe it was Monday night or Tuesday morning. No, it looks like it was Monday night, with this video here, gloating and putting the real cherry on top line at the end. Deplatforming works, she says. So here's this video.
Carlson is out at Fox News. Couldn't have happened to a better guy. What I will say, though, is while I'm very glad that the person that was arguably responsible for some of the largest, driving some of the most amounts of death threats and violent threats, not just to my office, but to plenty of people across the country. I also kind of feel like I'm like waiting for the cutscene at the end of a Marvel movie after all the credits have rolled. And then you see like the villain's like hand reemerge out to grip over like the end of a building or something. But deplatforming works, and it is important. And there you go.
Yeah, there you go. In fact, you took the words right out of my mouth. I was just going to say, there you go. Deplatforming works. Deplatforming works. So, I mean, I got nothing to say. You heard it there.
Well, not building on what I was saying before, the greatest driver of death threats. First of all, really, I don't think that's really true that he's the greatest driver of death threats to your office. And also, and we're setting aside ideology here because it seems like you're making an argument of a specific type of speech inciting violence. Do you know that many conservative hosts have to live with private security constantly guarding their families because they're constantly getting death threats? Do you know Ben Shapiro lives like that? Do you know that Matt Walsh lives like that? Do you know even Jeremy at the quartering has been swatted multiple times and has to have private security? Like, nobody even knows who that guy is.
Right.
And he has to have private security. Was he have $500,000 or something? I mean, and he has to live like that. So if that's the standard you're laying down, we're not talking about whether you like Matt Walsh or not, but if what we're arguing is certain kinds of speech incites violence, and the fact that you got death threats is evidence that they shouldn't be able to speak, well, then we have to pull MSNBC off the air entirely, because we can see tangible results among the kind of people that they target for their accusations of white supremacy and being Nazis.
Yeah, well, certainly. And not only that, you know, the real money line there, the deplatforming works to do what? Again,
Right.
this is a progressive movement that has just given up on winning any actual fights.
Right.
To the point where the only fight you can win now is what? Forcing people you don't like to keep their mouth shut?
Right.
What political victory is that actually? What materially do you actually change by winning that battle? Nothing. You just are what? Less annoyed or less threatened, as you say, by someone else's opinion that you don't like? Like, this is the battlefield now. This is where all of this, you know, quote unquote progressive energy has led. It's led into, and look, she is the most famous example of this, but she's not the only example of this. Anybody who's, I mean, most of the people who are watching here, you're online people. I'm sure you're on Twitter or you're on Facebook or you're in the Reddit threads, you know. You argue with these people a lot and you understand where they're coming from. A win is shutting you down. A win is shutting you up. That's the only battle they can win at this point, because they're too chicken shit and weak and dumb, quite frankly, many of them, to win any actual fights, any actual struggles out in the world of politics, which is the real world. They forfeited that. They cannot win there. You could not get paid family leave out of Joe Biden with a Democratic Senate and a Democratic House. So these are the battles that they fight now, and they take tremendous pride in winning them because that is how they keep their supporters tuning in and donating and pitching in, right? I mean, that's the game right now. That's it. And so those are the battles she's interested in waging. Those are the battles she's interested in fighting. You know, now that the Democrats have lost the House, she did a press conference about the Green New Deal. But notice when they had the House, where was she on that?
She's not talking about it.
Right, exactly.
Well, and this is why I talked about this when I went out the day of the Trump indictment. All the intellectual ferment, all the intellectual debate, all the disagreement, it was all on the MAGA side of the park, because they're not afraid they're going to get canceled. They're not afraid they're going to lose their job. This is a whole pseudo left movement that is boring as hell because everyone's completely predictable because they have to be. You can't afford to say something that a little outside the box, right? Because you're going to get scolded or maybe canceled, right? You don't know what's going to happen. So all you can do, the only intellectual activity you get is just elaborating on the same nonsense and signaling that you believe in this even more than the next person.
Well, right. And it's all of a piece, right? The reason why the conservatives are more willing to debate is because the conservatives, even when they're not in power, even when they can't change things, they know they can change things. Now, in my opinion, they don't change things for the better. They don't fight the real big battles that have to be fought, which is the power of capital versus the power of labor, right? They're not really interested in that because they're on the right, right? That aside, though, they are actually interested in achieving real things. What did they want? They wanted a wall, right? A wall, that's analog. That's a real thing. That's a thing we're going to build. It's going to be there because of us. If it wasn't for us, it wouldn't be there, right? It's a real thing that they want, that they felt they could get. And to a certain extent under Trump, they did get it. They got pieces of wall. They didn't get the wall he promised, but they got some wall, right? But some wall's better than no wall, right? There's like, a wall.
It's like the Great Wall of China
in places where if it weren't for us, there'd be no wall, right? Just take that as an example, right? When that is the realm in which you are functioning politically, you have disagreements and you're willing to hash those disagreements out because what those disagreements are in service of things that happen. That happen. Whereas on the left, these disagreements are not in service of things that happen because nothing happens. Because even when you win, you can't make anything happen, right? And so all that you have on the left as an ideal is conformity, right? If you don't have conformity, you have nothing because that's all you do have. It's all you can have. You can't actually win material gains. And when you can't win material gains, it's all about virtue signaling. It's all about herd mentality, and you cannot violate that. Whereas on the right, you can violate that because at the end of the day, maybe we disagree on this or that, but at the end of the day, we're all going to get together and we're going to build a wall. And there's going to be something to show for this. Whereas on the left, you never have any of that, ever.
Well, and ultimately, they realize that their cultural positions are deeply unpopular. That's why they are so set against free speech, because they know speech and debate don't favor them. You know, you watch Christopher Rufo, who DeSantis has basically set loose on this college as like a test case of whether you could unwoke a university. And you know, he's an academic. He's a conservative intellectual, and he puts out these 20 to 30 minute pieces that are these think pieces. He just put one out analyzing the why the left has become so focused on gender, and he's trying to have a classical debate. Right, he's trying to have this conversation within the parameters of Age of Enlightenment Western rationalism. You know, he's trying to break it down piece by piece. Okay, so the intention of this is this, and this is probably the reality. But actually, what was interesting about it to me is the conclusion he drew was not what you would expect from a conservative, right? Like the conclusion he drew after he had gone through all this was, we have to make space for people who are gender non-conforming, which that's not what you'd expect, right? That's not the conservative, what you think conservatives would believe, right? Or what a conservative intellectual would come up with. But that's what he came up with. He said, we have to make space for this while at the same time acknowledging biological realities and what comes with that, which seems like a pretty reasonable position to me. Now, if you want to sit down and debate him on that, go ahead. Why don't you? But they won't, because what would you say to that? What would you, if he's just going to go on and be like, men are men, women are women. Okay, you can take that on. But what he argued was what I would say is a classical liberal position. It's like, because you look at people like Rufo and really they're old school conservatives. They're like pre-crazy conservatives, and that kind of a conservative is a lot closer to a classic liberal than whatever AOC is at this point.
Right, exactly. All right, does that wrap our AOC segment?
Well, no, actually, because we have some footage. We've been going out, we've been pounding the pavement. A lot of people have traced back AOC's evolution, her transformation, to the day of the Iron Dome vote. If you remember, AOC did not want to vote for the Iron Dome for Israel. And Nancy Pelosi had a talk with her, and she changed her vote to yes from no, and she was seen crying afterwards. We have a source that was on the floor of Congress with a tape recorder. For the first time, you are going to hear what Nancy Pelosi actually said to AOC that changed her vote.
Strike me down with all of your hatred and your journey towards the dark side.
By the way, Nancy Pelosi's there with the pink, lower left-hand corner.
Yeah, she's
Ms. Lawson will vote.
Sorry, I stepped on it.
And your journey
kind
to
of fucked the whole thing up.
I fucked it. Well, I wanted to make sure.
Take your weapon. Strike me down with all of your hatred, and your journey towards the dark side will be complete.
Ms. Lawson will vote nay on House Resolution 483 amendments. He votes nay.
And so we can see. It's been a mystery. Why was AOC crying? Well, that was the day she turned to the dark side.
Exactly.
And she's never been the same.
I apologize. I stepped on it. It'll be good in the clip version.
Yeah.
Because you can't really see her prominently. That's why I wanted to direct people's eyes.
Well, yeah. All right.
But I'll edit it out. I'm sorry.
No. I mean, they appreciated it.
Yeah. All right, good. All's well that ends well. All righty. So let's move on here because we had some big news, obviously. Joe Biden is running for re-election. He formally announced his run this week. He put out a video announcement. Let's take a look. Here it is.
Freedom, personal freedom, is fundamental to who we are as Americans.
There's nothing more important, nothing more sacred.
That's been the work of my first term, to fight for our democracy,
This shouldn't be a red or blue issue.
to protect our rights, to make sure that everyone in this country is treated equally and that everyone is given a fair shot at making it. But around the country, MAGA extremists are lining up to take on those bedrock freedoms, cutting Social Security that you paid for your entire life while cutting taxes for the very wealthy, dictating what health care decisions women can make, banning books, and telling people who they can love, all while making it more difficult for you to be able to vote. When I ran for president 4 years ago, I said we're in a battle for the soul of America, and we still are. The question we're facing is whether in the years ahead we have more freedom or less freedom, more rights or fewer. I know what I want the answer to be, and I think you do too. This is not a time to be complacent. That's why I'm running for re-election. Because I know America. I know we're good and decent people. I know we're still a country that believes in honesty, respect, and treating each other with dignity. That we're a nation where we give hate no safe harbor. We believe that everyone is equal, that everyone should be given a fair shot to succeed in this country.
Thank you for choosing us.
We know we're a people that can no longer attract the white working class, so we're not going to include any of them.
Every generation of Americans has faced a moment when they have to defend democracy. Stand up for our personal freedom. Stand up for the right to vote and our civil rights. And this is our moment.
Oh, shit.
We, the people, not decide.
So if you're with me, go to joebiden.com and sign up. Let's finish this job. I know we can. Because this is the United States of America. There's nothing, simply nothing we cannot do if we do it together.
Oh, my dear Lord.
And there you go.
That,
all right.
That was just painful.
So,
just painful.
What I want to say first off, the first thing that struck me about this ad, just from a political analyst point of view, right? Because people say, well, you know, this show's good, but you cover electoral politics a lot. Well, yeah, we cover electoral politics like a few weeks before the midterms. We'll cover it a lot, you know. And now it's starting to be campaign season. So I'll give a little bit of an objective analysis of this. The first thing that struck me was Kamala gets a lot of FaceTime in this ad. She gets a lot of FaceTime in this ad, which is a sign that they know that a couple of things are going to be on voters' minds here, which is one, Joe Biden enters the race in his early 80s. Actuarial tables, not that we would wish this on anybody, but actuarial tables being what they are, there's a decent chance Kamala has to finish the term. They know that's going to be on voters' minds. There's no escaping that. I think they're smart not to try and deny that by hiding her. They know they're going to have to address this Kamala thing sooner or later. They know she's a drag on the ticket now. And so they figure this is a great opportunity to try and beef her image a bit, because there's no better way to advertise Kamala Harris than to just show her face, put some music under her, and don't let her talk, right? Like, that's a good way to feature her. And so they did that. It definitely struck me how present she was in this, especially given that she has lower favorability numbers than Joe does, number one. And number two, it's not rumor or speculation. We actually know for sure that the White House has sort of given her some of the less desirable tasks because they figure they'll dump some of their political capital onto her, right? Let her take some of the L's that they don't want Joe to take. Send her down to Guatemala to tell the immigrants to stay the fuck away, right? Like, just let her do it. They've been giving her some of
that's
those jobs.
traditionally what you do with a vice president.
Right, but I mean, in this case, it's especially true because Biden has been bleeding favorability numbers since, April of 2021, really. And Kamala's numbers were always lower than his was. And so, it's really, I think, telling that they featured her as much as they did in that ad. In terms of the other substance of the ad, look, their message, this was a base ad. Their message is abortion, January 6th. That's it. Voting rights. Abortion, January 6th, and your right to vote for us, basically. That's their message. That's their horse. That's what they have. Like, that's what they can run on. They can't run on anything else. And so, of course, they're going to feature those things. And so, as that goes, was it a terrible ad? I don't think so. As that goes in that way. Now, of course, is it winning me over? Obviously not. But, it seems like they understand the issues that they have to run on. They're betting that they can get over the finish line with those issues. I don't think it's a particularly good bet, but it is the best bet they have. Were they going to go up there and tout their union record? They have no union record. They broke up a rail strike. Were they going to tout, leadership on the world stage? No leadership on the world stage. The opposite, right? And so this is what they got to run. Look, that's what they got. That's the Democrats for you right there. That's what it is. And so you like it, you like it.
All right. So, I made a crack about it, but it is worth dwelling on. Yeah. They really decided to lean into the idea that, we have the black vote at least. Maybe they'll be excited by Joe. His numbers are much better with them. Usually these kinds of ads in modern times would have been very diverse.
Right.
You would have shown the white, hard hat guys and, the orange vests working a construction site, and they would have mixed that in with a black church, right? Nah, man. Like, they had a couple white people in there in the background. It almost seems like they felt like their base is so built around identity politics and this rhetoric of, hatred for white people, that they felt like part of their base might be offended if they put the union guys and the hard hats in there, that they might play as white supremacists or something, or catering to Trump voters or MAGA voters.
I was going to say, it's a shame that Tucker's not around for one last monologue. He would have liked that. Notice there are no white people in Democrat commercials anymore. Have you noticed that?
Have you noticed?
Why is that? Why do you think that is? Why can that be?
What do you think they're trying to say?
Barack Obama featured white people in his ads. Why isn't Joe Biden?
But look, you sit down and you spend the kind of time on that. That's not an accident. It's a choice. It's a choice. I mean, it's so glaring because it's not like, 20% or 10% is like a couple of people in the background. Man. Like, that's a choice. You know how much time you spend editing things, and like that's not an accident.
Well, nothing is by accident in a political ad. There's no such thing as
Of
a
course
wasted
not.
frame in a
So
political
what
ad.
does that
No
tell
frame is
you their
unaccounted for.
point of view is? It's basically, I think it's a combination of literally they feel like we're not winning white people anyway, and the white people that we do win are voting for us no matter what. Joe Biden could literally shit his diaper on stage and they're going to vote for us no matter what. So we don't have to appeal to them. And the working class whites, we lost them. So forget about that. So let's just lean into people of color who we, still win, even though Republicans are making inroads. We're still winning 90%. And let's just build the ad around that, because any white people who aren't already voting for us, they're not going to vote for us anyway. Like, I mean, it's an intentional choice. So you have to think, like, why did they make that choice? It's not an accidental choice. Why did they decide to only really have people of color in their whole ad?
It also has to do with the electoral map and the new math, right? I mean, this was something that a lot of political sort of numbers crunchers have been talking about for a long time, whereas there's the Rust Belt strategy and then there's the Sun Belt strategy, which is, across the southern part of the United States, i.e. Arizona, Georgia, maybe Texas, although that has not come around for the Democrats yet. But obviously with Georgia and Arizona going blue, they went blue very narrowly last time. If they go blue again, then you don't need the whole Rust Belt. You only need one or maybe two, depending on how the other states go.
Yeah.
You need Michigan, Pennsylvania, or Wisconsin. You could afford to lose a couple of those if you can win in Georgia and Arizona. Now, in Arizona, the Latino vote is going to decide whether you win or lose.
Which they're not doing very well with that vote.
No. But in Georgia, it's obviously the African-American vote that determines win or lose. And so if the Democrats feel like they can solidify their gains in places like Georgia and Arizona, then that white working class Rust Belt vote becomes much less important. You still got to win one of those states, but you have a lot of margin for error up in the upper Midwest if you can hold that Sun Belt. Now, whether you're going to hold the Sun Belt or not is no guarantee, because Georgia has been extremely close, as has Arizona. So none of this is for certain. But and it's not just a racial demographics thing. It's a class composition thing. They have no message for the Rust Belt, white, black, brown, whatever. They have no message for the middle of the country.
And he's insanely unpopular. I mean, at least
Yes.
with Trump, what was it? 90% of Republicans wanted him to run again. 70% of Democrats don't want Joe Biden to run again.
Right.
This is what people, they never think about. And we've seen this again and again in elections. People don't have to decide. Like, Democrats don't have to decide en masse, I'm not voting for Joe Biden. Enthusiasm matters because, a few 10,000 people deciding it's just not worth standing in line for can make or break an election.
Oh, of course. In Georgia, I think the final margin for Biden was about 12,000. Same thing in Arizona. It was very, very, very small.
Right.
Very small. I think Wisconsin, it was about 25,000, something like that. So yeah, no, I mean, these things are definitely decided at the margins. But look, in a sense, like, I know people think, oh, that ad it's horrible. Yeah, I mean, it's horrible to us. Any Joe Biden ad is going to look horrible to us. In terms
but
of
also
an
he
ad
can
kicking
barely
off the
speak,
campaign,
even in his own
no,
campaign.
he's shitty in that. Yeah, he's shitty there too.
Let's finish the job. He sounds like Muhammad Ali when he started to get Parkinson's, and nobody knew it yet.
Right. Yeah, no, but I mean, look, in terms of the content, in terms of what they were going to feature, I think it was pretty predictable. I mean, those are the issues they have. And also, I mean, he put the image of Trump and DeSantis together, sort of trying to brand them both as MAGA Republicans. But it seems pretty obvious that he is hoping to God that he gets to run against Trump. And we will get to this. We have a segment planned a bit later on where we'll elaborate on that a bit more. But there's his campaign announcement. All right, so we got that. Let's go to the responses from some of his Democratic rivals, shall we? Rivals, yeah. First from Marianne Williamson for immediate release on April 25th. Statement from Marianne Williamson on Joe Biden's 24 campaign launch. For those of us committed to Democrats winning the White House in 2024. Oh, I thought you were going to do a dirty break. What do you mean for those committed to the Democrats winning the White House? So that's you? So that means no dirty break, right? No. No, she still might do a dirty break.
Yeah. That doesn't sound like a dirty break.
Doesn't sound like a dirty break in the making. His remark that he has fought so that everyone is given a fair shot contradicts his refusal to fight for a higher minimum wage, permanentize the child tax credit, or side with the railroad workers trying to negotiate for sick pay. Yeah, no argument there. His saying that he knows America doesn't seem to include his knowing the 39% of Americans who report skipping meals to pay rent, the 1 in 4 Americans living with medical debt, or an entire generation concerned that the tepid efforts of his administration to fight the climate crisis will rob them of a habitable planet. His saying that this is not a time to be complacent about the threats to our democracy does not seem to include standing for the democratic process when it comes to choosing the Democratic nominee. Nothing new there, Marianne. The Democratic Party establishment has indicated it is planning to subvert the primary process by shoehorning Biden into the nomination, and Americans most concerned about our democracy must not let this happen. With over 50% of Democrats and 70% of all Americans making it clear they wish to see someone other than Biden run against the Republicans in 2024, it is imperative that the voters hear from all candidates running in this primary, not just the president. I look forward to a robust debate with Joe Biden. Yeah, well, you can look forward to it all you want. You're not getting one. As I present to the American people my platform of fundamental economic reform as a far better way to win the White House in 2024 than the president's incremental approach to governing. At such a critical time in our country, neither the president nor the DNC has the right to determine who and who is not a serious candidate. That is the right of the people alone. Well, the people are the Democratic Party electorate. That's the people who you speak of. These are not impressive people. These are not people who care very much whether or not the party runs a fair primary process, as they've proven over and over again. Let's hear from Robert F. Kennedy. His was much shorter, thankfully. I have known and liked Joe Biden for many years. Oh, with the my friend Joe already. I thought we hated Bernie for saying
Joe
my friend
is
Joe.
a good friend of mine.
A good friend of mine. He's a good friend of mine. I have known and liked Joe Biden for many years, but we differ profoundly on fundamental issues such as corporate influence in government, censorship, civil liberties, poverty, corruption, and war policy, among others. I look forward to engaging him in debates, again, not happening, and town hall meetings in a primary election that is honest, civil, and transparent. I invite him into a new era of respectful dialogue in these times of division. Kennedy, 24. All right, so his response, thankfully, was shorter than Marianne's. But you see those two trying to create some oxygen around their campaigns in response to Joe Biden. Now, in addition to that tweet, we have some video from RFK on the Kim Iverson show when he was asked repeatedly about his decision to run as a Democrat, since Iverson shares our criticism of that idea. So let's play this.
No, I really feel, Kim, like I need to reclaim the Democratic Party, and I feel like I have an opportunity to maybe do the same thing with the Democratic Party that Trump did with the Republican Party, which is to remind it of its populist roots and to reinvigorate the Democratic Party as a populist party.
Okay, let's just stop there for a second, and then we'll finish. Does he think the Democrats forgot about their populist roots? Does he think they abandoned those populist roots by accident, that it was just an oversight, that they simply need reminding? Hey, we used to be a party of working people. We've kind of lost our way. Do you really think that has not occurred to them? Do you really think that transformation was unconscious when history shows it was actually very conscious and very deliberate? This was an effort that they made over a prolonged period of time to replace their blue-collar base with a more white-collar base. Why? Because there's more money in a white-collar base because they got more money to give you. Reminding the Democrats of their populist roots is like reminding McDonald's they used to make real hamburgers. Well, you know what they'd say? They'd say, yeah, we used to make real hamburgers. Then we started mass-producing pink slime, and we got fucking rich doing it. So we're not going to stop. We're not going to go back to the old way of doing things. Why would we do that? What reason does
you
the
want an
Democratic
In-N-Out
Party have to
burger?
do
Vote
that?
green.
Exactly. We're not in that business. This is the big time, baby. Coffee is for closers only.
Yeah.
First prize, a Cadillac. Second prize, a box of steak knives. Third prize is you're fired.
Well,
Money
you know
talks,
what?
bullshit walks. That's what this is about. So obviously, this was not an accident. What does he think? What does he think? The DNC's, oh, you know, that's right. We used to be a populist party. Where did we go wrong? Where did we start straying from that? No. This is fantasy. This is blue pill nonsense. I'm sorry. It's fucking nonsense. And his answer there, that, well, I'm a Democrat and this is my party, that's very similar to the answer that Marianne gave RBN, which is, I remember the Democratic Party of old.
Right.
Doesn't matter. Fuck you. Nobody cares. Nobody cares. And it's disrespectful to young people who would like to have a future on this planet that your nostalgia for this Democratic Party of old is more important than building a movement that might be able to, not this cycle, obviously, but maybe a few cycles down the road, actually change things for the better. Instead, we're going to have these delusional, boomers wax nostalgic about the bygone era of the populist Democratic Party, thinking that it changed by accident and that they're going to get it back. It's a crock of bullshit. I've had it with this guy already. Stop bothering me about this guy already. I know some of you guys, we know we got some RFK stands in the audience. This is the same fucking thing. It's the same fucking thing. Just because you like his policies better doesn't mean he fundamentally represents anything really different at the end of the day. He's starting out with my friend Joe and the Democrats lost their way and we're going to get it back. No, you're not. Right. They didn't lose their way. They changed direction on purpose and they're not changing back no matter what he says or Marianne says or Briahna Joy Gray says or Kyle Kulinski says. They don't care. They don't care. And this moment requires the courage, as Kshama Sawant will demonstrate in our next segment. This requires the courage to stare that reality in the face and think, what do we do about it? Not fantasizing that you are going to get the Democratic Party back on course.
Yeah, you have to fundamentally not understand that the Democratic Party, top to bottom, has been taken over by your enemies. And they are never going to allow you to take control of that party. We saw that in the two Bernie campaigns. The money lenders are running the temple, and they got that shit locked down, man. You're not breaking through. If Kennedy or Marianne or any of these people really were prepared to challenge and threaten power, they would either be starting right off the bat as third-party candidates, or they would be telling you straight out, oh, yeah, no, we're going to use the machinery of the Democratic Party insofar as we can, which you really can because they're not going to let you have a debate anyway. So what machinery exactly are you going to be using? But in theory, okay, we're going to get more of a platform. I don't know if that's true in this case. And then I'm going to run as an independent when it doesn't work. Okay. We'd be all ears. We'd be all in on that. We'd be inviting these guys on the show. We'd
of course, yeah.
We'd be open to that. The fact that they're not doing that tells you it's a grift from day one. From day one, they're going to raise their profile, maybe sell some books. What are you going to get out of it? What are you going to get out of it? Especially if you're a veteran of the Bernie campaigns. You want to do that for this schmuck? Really? This guy who's starting off right off the bat talking about his good friend Joe? In hindsight, we should have been out of there as soon as Bernie said that. Like, that should have told us all we needed to know. In fact, in 2016, when he endorsed Clinton, we should have followed Jimmy Dore's lead and been out of there, because that told us all we needed to know about what he was prepared to do. Remember the Untouchables? What are you prepared to do? Right? So what are they prepared to do? Nothing.
But what I would say to
they
that
want to
is
play political games with your time and money. And just one more point.
Sure.
He's talking about the Democrats' roots. Yeah, you know what? If you debated a lot of people, most people are not politics junkies like us. If you debated most people, the Democratic Party has been this corrupt tool of Wall Street for almost 2 generations now. It's been so long that if you talk to most registered Democrats today who are not boomers, they don't know what happened. They don't know that the Democratic Party was twisted and corrupted. They have no idea that the Democratic Party was this New Deal Labor Party. For their entire lives, the cultural signaling of the Clintonites and their clear contempt for working class people has been the predominant ethos of what they've been taught leftism is. That's how we wound up with such a loathsome base of the Democratic Party. It's partly that those kinds of people are attracted to it, but it's also you have an entire generation and more that have been taught to think that's what it is to be on the left.
Sure. No, absolutely. And look, I mean, the Democratic Party has historically never been a true labor party in the sense that, like, the British Labour Party was actually born of trade unionists. It is a trade unionist party from its inception, right? But yes, granted, Democrats at a time, right, did represent labor, certainly a hell of a lot more than they represent labor now. That is the Democratic Party that RFK, Marianne have this nostalgia for, this longing for. That's none of any young people's business. We don't care about that. Why are you bothering people with that? That's some emotional hang up you have. That's your problem. That's not the world's problem. That's not young people's problem. Like, that's neither here nor there. When it comes to Bernie 2016 versus Bernie 2020, the reason that Bernie 2020 campaign, even though it failed, and even though obviously hindsight is 2020, oddly enough, one of the points that Kshama makes is that, there were millions of people willing to get involved. And so that made it worth doing in and of itself as a galvanizing force, even if he ended up a disappointment. But also, Bernie 2020, there was this illusion, and I admit, in retrospect, obviously it was only that. But because he started out in 2020 at 30% in the polls, we're like, okay, if we could just squeeze a little more out of this fruit, we can get to 50. Because we're not starting this campaign as he started 2016 with 10 people on lawn chairs in the Vermont woods. We're starting here with a 20,000 person rally at Midwood, right? So if that's the starting point, where can we finish? That's why that was worth a shot. Here, you're not even really starting.
It was like rooting for the Mets 7 points down.
Yeah, right, exactly. Right. It's like you're not even really starting anything. So what are we talking about? Let's let him finish, though, because he makes another point that's a real head scratcher to me.
That's and I think that's important. I think that the path that the Democratic Party is on right now is a bad path. I think that, it's shocking to me that it's become the war party. I mean, they're both parties of the war party. And that it's the party promoting censorship. And, the word liberal means freedom of speech. And yet, President Biden and the advertisement the announcement that he released today, the big issue in it was freedom of speech.
Stop. What? The big issue in Biden's announcement, the one we just played for you guys a few moments back, that big announcement
Santo Trafficante arranged my first blowjob at the Flamingo. Sinatra was there.
The big issue in that video was freedom of speech. What? What video
I
were you
have
watching?
no idea where he got that from. I mean, I guess it's the book banning thing.
Yeah, the book banning thing. Because he said DeSantis wanted to ban some books. That means the major issue in that video was freedom of speech. Hold on, let's let him keep going.
And I think we really do need freedom of speech, and that was, that's ironic. But I'm glad that President Biden reminded us that that's an important value of the Democratic Party, and I hope that I can continue to remind Democrats of their roots.
All right. I'm glad President Biden reminded us that's an important value. Is he trying to make the point that if you're against book banning, you should be against censorship in all forms? If that's the point you were trying to make, I think that's a pretty weak way of making it. It wasn't very clear that that's what you were saying or that that's what you meant.
Any response to AOC's comments in regards to freedom of speech? Probably not. And as we discussed offline, Democrats try to ban books in a way that is much more the way we would traditionally interpret the phrase book banning. What they're calling book banning is taking books out of public schools. And as could have been predicted, geniuses, when you demanded that graphic depictions of oral sex be kept in public schools, you gave these people that we had vanquished at one time, more or less, legitimacy again. You resurrected the censors. You resurrected the right-wing censors that we had made a national laughingstock and basically, banished to the land of wind and ghosts. You brought them back, and naturally, they're not going to stop at that material now that you've empowered them. They're going to go after Toni Morrison and so on and all kinds of crazy things. That was why we made them a laughingstock, so that they would not be in a position. So now you're saying, see, they're banning Toni Morrison. Well, you put them in a position to ban Toni Morrison by insisting that material be in public schools that the vast majority of parents would not agree should be in public schools. So they wound up turning to, it's like what he says in Batman, right? In their fear, they turned to a man they didn't really understand. In their fear of what you wanted to do, they reinvigorated this old Jerry Falwell right wing that wants to censor everything. Right, anything to the left of the Dick and Jane books, these people want to ban, and that's why we used to go after them. That's why we attacked them. That's why we satirized them all the time until they could barely show their faces in public. You brought them back from the dead now, but your hands are not clean, because whenever I see the left trying to ban a book in the true sense, they're going to the publishers. They're not just trying to take it out of public schools. They're trying to get publishers not to publish books. They're trying to get bookstores not to carry books. They're trying to get online sellers not to offer books. They're trying to get public library systems, not school library systems, public library systems not to carry these books. So if you want to talk about book banning, they never talk about it from that perspective. The left much more meaningfully and substantively attempts to ban books than the right does at this particular moment in time.
Sure, but the whole invocation of the book banning thing on RFK's part, assuming that's what the fuck he was talking about, because honestly, we're just guessing. I mean, that whole answer
I don't see anything else in there.
I don't see what else he could have interpreted as being a free speech argument in that video. So assuming that's what he was talking about, we can go with that, I suppose. This is, again, a sign you are being democrated, right? What they do is they'll point to an example of overreach on the Republican side.
Exactly.
And they will use that to suggest that the Democrats are less guilty on their side. Now, because he put the word ironic in there, maybe he was trying to make some sarcastic point about, well, if you're against book burning, you should be against censorship of all kinds. Maybe that's what he was going for. I'm not sure. But the idea that you would look to the banning of certain books, many of which, by the way, should be banned in public schools, like the cartoon cocksucking book. Yeah, that should not be in a children's school library. Obviously, Toni Morrison should be, and I think The Kite Runner is on that list. I mean, that's a great book.
I don't even understand why that's on that list.
But yeah, so
that's what happens when you let them make these decisions.
Right, you give them an inch, they take a mile, or in this case, give them 5.5 inches, then they'll take a mile. Right. But anyway, yeah. So look, once you,
I heard the drawing is at least 8.
Yeah. All right. Well, interesting. We have to look for ourselves. But anyway,
I've only seen the blurred out version.
Yeah, right.
It looks like a big blur.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, no, I mean, you point to an example of Republican overreach and use that to absolve the Democrats of their sins. Meanwhile, there are far more egregious forms of censorship happening on the Democrat side. Poll 100 ordinary people, ask who's more in favor of censorship right now, Democrats or Republicans. You're going to get, if you are just polling the ordinary person, I guarantee it's going to come back 70-30. Democrats want to censor more. All right.
Well, and Democrats have lost their traditional advantage on the education question. Why do you think that is? Why?
Right.
Well,
right.
Because they're pushing a deeply unpopular agenda. We're going to get into this with DeSantis, where, all the libs are like, oh, him taking on Disney is terrible for him. On what planet? On what planet is that terrible for him? They only talk to people like themselves because they ban the speech of anyone they don't like. They banish them from their lives, right? They just won't talk to anyone who disagrees with them. So they wind up having this just completely warped understanding of the country they live in.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So there's one more response to Joe Biden's presidential announcement that we want to cover, and that is the response of Bernie Sanders himself. He surprised some people, although I have no idea why this was a surprise at all, by issuing what passed as an endorsement to much of the press. They ran with the story that Bernie Sanders endorsed Joe Biden just hours after he announced his run. He gave this quote here: "The last thing this country needs is a Donald Trump or some other right-wing demagogue who is going to try and undermine American democracy or take away a woman's right to choose or not address the crisis of gun violence or racism or sexism or homophobia," Sanders said in an interview. "So I'm in to do what I can to make sure that the president is re-elected." A lot of progressives were rubbed the wrong way by this, holding out hope that, what do you think, he was going to endorse Marianne? What do you think he was going to endorse RFK?
I didn't even understand it. I thought we moved on. Like, who's even paying attention to what the fuck he says anymore?
Yeah, I don't understand what Kyle Kulinski thought he was going to do here. What, were you hoping that he would buck the party and endorse one of these underdog challengers, and that's how you were going to get some oxygen? Ludicrous. The other thing that you notice here, in his list of issues that he rattles off for why we need to make sure that Biden gets a second term over Trump, what does he go to? He goes to the standard blue MAGA talking point issues, which is American democracy, women's right to choose, gun violence, racism, sexism, homophobia. There is no class consciousness left in his message there.
Yep.
He can't give an argument. He can't incite. He cannot invoke any of his trademark issues, of his signature issues. He can't invoke any of them as reason why we should invest in a second Biden term. He has to go right to the MSNBC issue set to cite that.
It's sad, man. I mean, it's sad. He's a shell of his former self. Seeing how Sanders did spend decades giving the same speech, that was part of why we believed in him, right? I mean, here's this guy who was ignored for 20 years and he never wavered from this same speech. And it's almost like it would have been better if he had stayed obscure. I think he'd still be giving that speech. He didn't have those pressures on him now. I'm sure they break his balls. They show him pictures of his grandkids. And
well, now what can you say? I mean, what can you say? I mean, can you make any of these arguments? Can he make a Bernie case for Biden 2024? No.
Well, no,
He
that's
can
true too.
only toe the party line. He can only go to those issues. This is why that video was what it was, because this is what they have. Democracy's under attack from the MAGA Haggard to helmet guys with the January 6th.
No.
Women's right to choose, gun control, all that. That's all they've got. All right, we're gonna do Briahna Joy Gray and
but
Kshama Sawant. Go ahead.
Before we get into that, yeah, that like all of this is just very sad and I guess surprising to me that so many people have not moved on in their head from all of that. Like seeing people putting out these statements of God, Bernie, I can't like what
But
what on earth did you think he was going to do? Did you like why? That wasn't even on my radar. That's why I was surprised people were surprised by it. Like it wasn't even a thought in my head that he wasn't going to endorse Biden. Like,
right, because look, and the other thing is you have to be, in fairness to him, it's not on most people's radar that any of these Democrats would have to think twice before endorsing Biden for 2024. To most of America here, there's not a primary going on. Like this is what people have to understand.
Right.
There is no primary. There is primary.
Okay, that's
you don't get a primary. Look, in 2020, when Donald Trump was president, were there Republican debates? Was there a televised and contested Republican primary? No. Trump was the incumbent. He was the presumed nominee for 2020. What about 2012, when Barack Obama was running for his second term? Was there a Democratic primary with debates and social media? No. What about 2004, George Bush, incumbent? Did the Republicans have a primary then? No. What about 96? Was there a Democratic primary in 1996? Nope. It was Bill Clinton. 1992, George H.W. Bush. No primary. 1984, Reagan. No primary. The last primary we had was that 1980 primary where a Kennedy, oddly enough, made it somewhat interesting against Jimmy Carter. But even he only won, I think, 7 or 8 states, maybe even less. Like, it wasn't really close.
It was only because his name was Kennedy.
You're right. And it wasn't close. So what are you talking about? What do you expect here? What do you think is going to happen here? There is no primary. It is customary that there is no primary. Now, should it be customary? No, but it's none of my fucking business anymore. You know why? Because I'm not a Democrat anymore. And neither should you be.
Well, this is what has been so sad to watch all of these people. And I have an article coming about this. To watch all of these people saying, oh, well, it's not fair. What part of we are a private organization that could still pick our candidates in a smoke-filled back room if we wanted to? Did you not understand? That is what they argued in court when they were sued by Bernie supporters for running a fraudulent primary campaign. They argued they can pick whoever they want because they are a private organization with no legal obligation to do shit for you. That is what they told you that straight out. So when you start talking about, well, it's not in the spirit of democracy. It's not fair. You sound like what Jimmy Dore always says this. You sound like the abused children of alcoholics. That's what you sound like when you start going on about this. What part of they don't give a fuck do you not get?
Right, exactly.
What part of like you're going to make a moral argument? It's like you're trying to make a moral argument to your abuser.
Right.
The abuse is only going to escalate when they smell weakness.
Right.
Right? They're going to laugh at you. You are not going to persuade them of democracy. This is like a casino told you the dice are loaded, and you came back to argue with the casino owner about that not being fair.
Right.
They told you to your fucking face.
Right.
These dice are loaded, and you're still talking about playing at this casino. You're not. That's not serious. You're not. I'm told I'm the only person who watches Succession, but we have a big enough audience. I'm sure somebody else does. So it's you got the kind of self-made guy, kind of based on Rupert Murdoch, who runs the media empire, and all his children have been raised rich, and they're all kind of silly and useless. There's this great moment. There's this great scene in this season, this final season, where he says, "I love you all," to his 4 children, "but you're not serious people." That's how I feel when I see this. I'm like, you're not serious people. What are you talking about? The Democratic Party's not fair. Get fucking serious. I understand that it's hard to try to navigate a world where we're not sure what to do next. I say very openly, I don't know what the answer is. I would like us, you want something productive we could do with our time? I would love to get a roundtable going with some of the other people in our space who have interesting ideas and interesting thoughts. Let's talk about it. Let's try to start to figure that out. I mean, we're going into a segment with Kshama, who seems to have some ideas about that. But if you're going to put your time and energy into thinking about this, the only thing you should be thinking about the Democratic Party is how to burn it to the ground.
Right. How to render it irrelevant.
That's it.
Exactly.
Other than that is the only thing you should care about in regards to that party.
Absolutely. 100%. By the way, folks, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. I know we got 560 people in here right now. That's amazing, but not all of you are subscribed. So please hit that subscribe button if you are not subscribed already. That's very important. That is free to do. It's free to join, free to leave, right? So take a chance, hit that subscribe button, please. It very much helps us out. And hit that like button as well. Let's take a few super chats before we get into our Kshama segment here. Robert Penner, thanks for the $2, my friend. AOC soon will be queen of the plastics. Yeah, I think that's part of what Russell was talking about earlier on, about an hour ago. Wow, that segment ran long, but that's okay. Thanks, Robert. Elizabeth Marshall, thanks for the $5. Here in Montana, my state house rep, for whom I proudly voted, has been barred from the floor of the Montana House through the end of the session. So that's a state house rep. That's not the U.S. House.
She's talking about the trans legislator.
Oh, is that what happened in Montana? Oh, maybe I didn't.
In Montana, yeah, because she gave a speech about they're going to pass a bill banning the youth transgender healthcare, and she gave a speech saying, when you pray, I hope when you stand up, you see the blood on your hands. And they demanded an apology, which she would not give. And so they banned her for the rest of the session, which I think is 2 weeks, 2 more weeks in the session.
So it's a suspension. It's not
it's a suspension. Not I mean, they probably have a procedure for that, but they're not going
not
that far.
That. Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks, Elizabeth. Long story short, thanks for the $2. Google eliminated the search by recent. Oh, okay. You're talking about the news stories? Thank you. Zach, coincidentally, RFK Jr.'s podcast is called Defender. Defender. That's the name of his show. Okay.
My dad fucked Marilyn Monroe, and so did my uncle.
I just like this one. This is not a super chat. You two are bitches, so what do we do? Well, that's what we just said. We were not really sure.
We're not sure.
But thanks for the comment.
You know what bitches would do? They'd give you an answer without really knowing what the fuck they're talking about.
Right. Exactly.
Which a lot of people in this space do.
Indeed. Got a lot of bitches up in this space.
Yeah.
Red Z, intolerance of intolerance is intolerance, man. Good point, Red Z. Thank you for the $2. In my humble opinion, says Kinky, thanks for the $5. This is all a push to manufacture consent for the Restrict Act sitting in the Senate now. You're talking about the censorship push?
I agree.
Yeah.
I agree.
I mean,
they're looking for a 9/11 to justify passing that act.
Yeah. Yeah. And, they might need it. Although
a 9/11 equivalent, like something
right.
that they can use to
something that will shock that world enough where emergency
Yes.
action needs to be taken. Yeah.
Exactly.
Good point, Kinky. Thank you for the $10, Tusker. We appreciate that as always.
Tusker.
Zach, AOC culturally appropriated the Sunshine Movement protest. Well, I almost included the. I think you're talking about the Sunrise Movement, but I think you're talking. I almost included the Sunrise Movement in tonight's show. I almost put an exhibit up because they said something. They tweeted out in response to Biden's announcement that, like, if Biden wants to win, he's going to have to do better. So even they are not into the Marianne thing or the RFK thing. Like, they're pretty much operating under the assumption that it's going to be Biden. So is everybody in this space. The people who aren't are Republicans who are thinking of crossing over and voting for RFK, which is why he's at like 19 points in the polls. And Kyle's
is he at 19 now?
Yeah, he was at 19. Yeah. No, I mean, he's got decent polling based on the Kennedy name and the fact that he has a lot of crossover support, meaning there are conservatives who maybe don't want to vote for Trump who like RFK, right?
Well, you say that's a waste. He should be running as an independent.
Right, exactly. That's why he should be.
Like, why run in the Democratic Party if he's got that kind of crossover appeal?
Right, then just run
that
as
would
an
be
independent
great
already. That would be great. Yep, absolutely. But yeah, Sunrise, even then, like even like the organizers are not into they know it's not going to happen. Like there's an incumbent president here, folks. This is how this goes. This is not out of the ordinary. This is the first time that we've seen this happen since the YouTube Bernie progressive media world sprung up. And the YouTube Bernie progressive media world is used to running in primaries. So they're trying to gas you up into thinking there's a primary.
Right.
There's no primary. There's an incumbent Democratic president, right?
Yep.
And these fucking people, by the way, who told you in 2020 to suck it up and vote for Biden, this is what they voted for. They voted for there to be no primary in 2024. Right. So they made their bed here. They could fucking lay in it. Now they're trying to make up some bullshit to get you to subscribe to their channels. We're just asking you, please subscribe to our channel anyway.
Go home and get your
Zach,
fucking shine box.
Exactly. Biden culturally appropriated AI speech service. Yes. Gray Ghost. By the way, where does that screen name come from, Gray Ghost? Because there's a good song called Gray Ghost by one of my favorite songwriters. I'm curious if you got that from him. But cheers. Cheers, and thanks for the $10. Zach Boyles, $1.99. Kamala culturally appropriated insane clown laugh. You're on that. Okay, so you have a riff going. You have a riff going tonight. I like it. Thank you, Zach. Cool Blue, $1.99. Biden believes everyone needs equal health care. Yeah. Just not truly equal health care. The White House path runs through PA and Michigan. Same with Wisconsin. The tipping point stayed in both 2016 and 2020. Neither party will reach 270 without them. Yeah, I used to know these electoral vote counts, but like the back of my hand. Now with the 2020 census, they're a little bit different. So I'd have to look at the map there. But Biden, I believe, in fact, I'm pretty much certain, am I? I think Biden could have afforded to lose Pennsylvania and Michigan last time because he won Georgia and Arizona and Wisconsin. I think he could have afforded because Michigan was 20. Michigan was, I think, 16 and Pennsylvania was 20, if I'm not mistaken. And I think he ended up with like 306, 307. So I'm not 100% sure on that. Don't quote me on that. But I think he could have afforded to lose 2 out of 3 and still win because of the Arizona-Georgia thing. And that's what I was talking about earlier. That's why I think they're really going to play. I mean, Georgia and Arizona, that's huge for them. If they can solidify those states, that changes things big time. I think they're going to have a tough time doing that, though. Lars and Ruin, $2. President Harris, anyone? Well, yeah, I mean, that's... Excuse me.
I mean, it'll be good for us.
Yeah, that will be good for us. That will be good for us. But that was what I was saying about that ad.
The Sunday funnies will write themselves.
Yeah, they'll write themselves. You won't have to rack our brains for them anymore. But that's what I think a lot of that ad was about, is just like facing that Kamala anxiety head on. We're like, she's the running mate. We've got this. Like what that ad showed, it did what a political ad, especially the inaugural campaign announcement, has to do, which is it projected confidence in their ticket. Now, do they deserve to be confident? Probably not. But, when you're putting an ad together, that's what you kind of have to show, right? Zach, thanks for the $4.99. RFK talks about Fauci cordially, too. Don't mix him up with Bernie. He's talking up the voters who have been attacked. shut up and finish book. All right. Well, I haven't started the book yet.
What book is that now?
No, he's talking about RFK's book because we said we would read.
Reading the book.
But this got nothing to do with the book. This has to do with brown nosing and starting out with the My Friend Joe shit. And just look, the My Friend Joe shit is a rhetorical thing that bothers some people a lot. It bothers me a little bit. I don't care as much about that as I do with your mission statement of reminding the Democrats that they used to stand for something good. That is delusional. That just shows a willful lack of understanding about where the party has gone and why it went there and why it will never go back. Right? If this is all about convincing, we're just going to win hearts and minds over a DNC headquarters. Man, I'm sorry, your head's not in the game. Head's not in the game. Red Z, thanks for the $2. Russell Keaton, right coffee is for closers, man. Yeah, indeed. And Eric Torres, copium is a hell of a drug. Thank you very much,
Ain't it
sir.
though?
We appreciate that. It is indeed. Okay, we will get to some more in a little while, but it is getting late, and we don't want to keep too many of the viewers up past too much of their bedtime, so we will get to the rest of our super chats. Don't you guys worry. But we are going to now go on to a segment that I think is very telling. Briahna Joy Gray versus Kshama Sawant. So Briahna Joy Gray invited Kshama Sawant onto her Bad Faith podcast, and they had a debate about the benefits and potential drawbacks of supporting either Marianne Williamson or RFK Jr. in the Democratic primary. There's a bit of video here to play, but we will comment as we go. So let's get started.
Bernie and said, could you please, if you went to Bernie and said, could you please, would you consider doing a dirty break? Would you consider running as an independent? Are you thinking at all about the possibility of...
Okay, stop. If you went to Bernie and said, or one of the RFK Marianne, if you're considering doing a dirty break right away, you're in fantasy world. You're in fantasy land. I'm sorry. You're not living in reality. You're living in a world that you wish existed because you don't like not having a candidate to back in a race, and you're having a hard time processing.
You just
what
can't
to
imagine.
Do. Right.
You can't imagine.
Right.
And they also, we've talked about this, and look, I mean, I think Bree has good intentions, unlike a lot of people in this space. But hey, if you have a show like this, I think especially we didn't really have this show in 2016 and 2020. We were writing articles by 2020, but we weren't really doing this. They're in this habit, I mean, this is how they think of election cycles. They just can't even think of not getting involved in the primary game. And as you point out, just because of the way the cookie crumbled, where Trump won, so you had an open primary for the Democrats again in 2020.
In 2020, right.
They've just never experienced this in the time that they've been in this space.
Right. And they just are having an existential crisis here. What do we do? What do we talk about on these microphones?
Right.
What do we talk about?
Right.
Bringing that question to someone like RFK Jr. or Marianne, whoever else might enter into the race. And if they were to do that and did have some energy behind them, is there something about those candidates that you think makes them fundamentally not someone you would want to kind of partner with in that way? Or do you see that as a real possibility?
What a ludicrous question. If two candidates who have not promised a dirty break, if they promised a dirty break and they had energy behind them, which they really don't have, would that be worth supporting? Here's Kshama Sawant.
First of all, I would say the onus is not on us as working people to provide support for them and then try to glean out maybe there is something worth supporting. It's on them. If they're going to run as alternatives to Biden, then the onus is on them to show why they are fighting for, how they are fighting for working people, or that we should see them as fighters for working people. I think.
Okay, so this is interesting because what Kshama says there is obviously 100% right.
Right.
But if you see Bree's face, Kshama's not talking to a working person. Kshama's talking to a podcast host who wants a candidate, right? Kshama's talking to a recruiter. She's not talking to an ordinary person. So Kshama says, well, look, It's not on us to go and ask them, would you be interested in doing this? It's on them to present their case to us. But the incentives are not what she realizes. Kshama's talking to Briahna Joy Gray, who, as we just said, can't imagine not having a candidate to back. And so that's where she's talking past her a bit. But no, absolutely correct.
Them to show why they are fighting for, how they are fighting for working people, or that we should see them as fighters for working people. I think, Briahna, the bar has to be very high. It can't be based on the feeling of desperation that I know a lot of people are feeling, that, we don't want Biden, we need an alternative. Okay, so let's
it can't be based on a feeling of desperation that, we don't want Biden, we need an alternative. You can't try and wish cast your way into a candidate out because you're feeling desperate, which is exactly what Briahna and Kyle and Crystal, that's exactly what they're all doing. They're desperate for a candidate, and so they're trying to concoct a case why this candidate is worth supporting. And Kshama, who's an actual movement person, an actual movement leader, says, no, of course we can't do it that way. Of course we can't do it that way. Anything to add before we let her keep going?
Well, this is part of the problem, and I have a lot of respect for Briahna. I think she's done a lot of great work and continues, I'm sure, will continue to do a lot of great work. In the end, she is limited by her class perspective. We talked about this when we were on with JB. To me, if you don't know what it is to look into an empty refrigerator and not be sure how you're going to put any food in it, you just have a certain perspective. You'll just never really see things that way. You'll just never really understand it. Your class consciousness is always going to be somewhat theoretical. With the best of intentions, you're just not going to think like somebody who has known poverty, who has known what it is to be up Schitt's Creek without a paddle. When you got money to fall back on, you're never really up Schitt's Creek without it. You always got a paddle. You got money.
Right.
Like, you don't know what it is to be like, man, I don't know what's going to happen to me. And once you've experienced that, it gives you a really, and especially if you grew up experiencing that, gives you a really different perspective on things. So what Briahna doesn't get here, I think the fundamental thing that, and what Kshama is saying here is very similar to what Nick said when he had Marianne on. We are working people. We can't afford to play dress up. We can't afford to go pretend that these candidates are viable. You can. You're a Harvard-trained lawyer. You can afford to play politics. We can't afford. This isn't a game for working people. We don't have the time. We don't have the resources. A lot of the people in our movement are working their asses off just to keep their heads above water. They don't have time to be coming home and making phone calls for RFK Jr. for no fucking discernible reason.
Right. And it's not just that Briahna can afford to do that, but I'm sorry, this is what really rubs me the wrong way about all of this, is that people in this space have a financial incentive to do that. The incentive is to grow the channel. Now, I'm not saying Brianna's grifting in the way that Kyle is, because she's not, but I'm saying the incentive there is the same. Right. And that's what's frustrating to me, is like, why not just do this the honest way? The way we do it. The way RBN does it, the way Hardlens Media does it. Why not just do it the right way? Why do you have to gin people up with all this fucking bullshit for?
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, look, Vanguard, they don't have too many tools in their box. They really can't afford to do it the right way. Brianna's smart enough to do it the right way. You know what I mean? Like, Crystal's smart enough to do it the right way.
The Vanguard is basically like a side quest in an episode of Fargo where they did like a little side story about the delivery van guys.
Exactly.
And then you never see those characters again.
Like, in a way, I don't really fault them.
They bring them back
really
for the season finale, maybe.
Right.
It's like a callback.
Yeah, exactly. All right, here we go.
Let's maybe Marianne it is, maybe RFK Jr. I don't think that approach.
All right, sorry, let me just keep going. This is good.
Briahna, the bar has to be very high. It can't be based on the feeling of desperation that I know a lot of people are feeling, that, you know, we don't want Biden, we need an alternative. Okay, so let's maybe Marianne it is, maybe RFK Jr. I don't think that approach works. I mean, maybe you won't agree with me, but this is what I said when we talked about Marianne Williamson too, the last time I was on the show, that it's not. I mean, I would be only too happy to be proven wrong, that, oh, maybe one of these candidates is actually going to be a fighter for working class, but I don't see it happening. Honestly, RFK Jr., I don't care what he says. He's an insider. He's a political insider. What if AOC...
But Kshama, so was Bernie. I mean,
no. Bernie was not an insider in the way that RFK is. It's simply not true.
But Kshama, Bernie was in Congress for like 40 years. I mean, this is not a criticism. I love Bernie, but you know.
But here's the deal, though. We supported Bernie in that campaign because it was clear that at that time it was going to really catch the country by storm. And as I said, that tens of millions of people were going to be really energized by his call for, you know, taxing Wall Street and ending student debt and Medicare for all. You know, it was about those things, and in his willingness to actually stick to the message and campaign. I mean, do you remember how many people mocked him for giving the same speech everywhere? That is exactly what he should have done. And the thing,
so this is kind of what we were getting at in the last segment, right? She's socialist alternative. She didn't think Bernie should have run as a Democrat, but she said, no. The reason we backed that is because we saw real, legitimate movement building opportunity in that, because we knew it was going to catch fire and it was going to galvanize people and it was going to radicalize people. So even if most of the people who it galvanized ended up being sheepdogged into the Democratic Party, which is a shame. I'm sure she would strongly disagree with how Bernie handled his post-campaign activities. But a certain amount didn't. A certain amount splintered off.
Like us.
And that's how you have that's how you have the Starbucks workers. That's how you have the Amazon union. That's how you have workers strike back. She's saying there's a mass movement here that is worth supporting because there is evidence that this thing is going to go big. There's no evidence that RFK is going to go big, right? You know, you have to pick a horse here, right?
The point is that if you are going to support a candidate that is running in the Democratic Party, your bar has to be very high. So I don't agree with you. No, neither of these candidates are rising to that level. And if they want to, they can. Nobody's stopping them. So because it's not a personal thing. It's about what we owe working people. And what I owe working people right now is to not fuel any illusions whatsoever in either of these candidates.
Boom. What I owe working people right now is to not fuel any illusions in either of these candidates. That's a lot. That's very similar to what Nick said on the RBN thing.
Yeah.
You know, you owe it to people not to bullshit them.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
If you are a movement person, if you're a podcast host who's selling Patreon subscriptions, and the idea that we're going to do a hostile takeover of the Democratic Party and it's just one primary after another, well, then you have another motive, right? But if you're a movement person leading working people, you have an obligation to be honest and not get their hopes up and get their time invested and their money invested over nothing. You have an obligation to be honest with them in that way. You have a responsibility to be honest with them in that way. And you can see she's kind of scratching her chin there. Because the thing is, I don't think Kshama's doing this intentionally, but she is kind of calling her out here.
Right.
Like she is kind of calling her out. I don't think she's doing it on purpose.
I mean, this picture is worth 1,000 words right here.
Right, exactly. I don't think she's doing it to be hostile or on purpose, but that is kind of what she's saying there.
Sorry, that's just the way.
The moment you realize that your life's work may have been a waste of your time.
Yeah. The moment you realize you're being called out by accident by Kshama Sawant. Yeah.
Fuel any illusions whatsoever in either of these candidates. I'm sorry, that's just the way it is.
I guess I'm struggling with the idea that
I'm struggling with the idea that I need a candidate. and
I just don't know what I'm going to talk about for the next 2 years without one.
What are we going to say to the audience who wants a candidate if we can't convince them to support a candidate? Wrestling with that. I don't know. What are we gonna do about this?
Attacking Trump, attacking
Trump.
DeSantis. They can get that anywhere.
They can get that anywhere. What are we gonna do? All right, let's see.
I'm struggling with the idea that I understand an argument that the bar should be set somewhere. I'm struggling with this idea.
It should be set very high, not somewhere, but very high.
Well, the second part of what I'm going to say is going to clarify why I say
Kshama don't
somewhere.
play.
Yeah, no.
My concern is that the height that is considered very high is basically just the fact of...
Sorry, I got to go to the chat. This was a funny line. Where was that? Yeah. Let me ask this question a fifth way. Trying to think of a way to rephrase this. A good one, Saul. I like that.
Good one.
All right.
Bernie having existed.
Sorry, let me go back here.
Very high, not somewhere, but very high.
Well, the second part of what I'm going to say is going to clarify why I say somewhere. My concern is that the height that is considered very high is basically just the fact of Bernie having existed means that everyone is going to compare every candidate to Bernie. And it's less that there is an actual metric that's being decided on the basis of what the returns for the left and for working people can actually be by getting...
But the metric is whether you can win. And the return is victory. So if Bernie ran twice and lost, then of course you need someone...
If you leave her frozen like that, we're never getting her on the show.
Oh, okay.
There you go.
Better.
That's more flattering, yeah.
The point is Bernie ran twice and lost. So if you're going to pitch a candidate, then obviously that candidate would have to be better than Bernie Sanders. What, you're going to go, as Kshama says, what, you're going to go to working class people? Yeah, I know Bernie ran twice and he got close one of the times, but ultimately he didn't have what it took to win and he wasn't willing to go where he had to go and do what he had to do in order to win. But good news, we have two candidates in the race who are getting ready to run again. Oh, great. Are they better than Bernie? Well, no, actually they're worse.
Far worse.
Actually, they're far worse. Then what are you talking about? What a ridiculous question.
People can actually be by getting behind a candidate. It's more, well, they were less than Bernie. Therefore, no matter what gains could come out of this represents a step back.
If they're less than Bernie, then there are no gains that can come out of it because Bernie lost twice. You have to be able to win if you are going to get people into these campaigns. You're still talking about 7 years later. This is Marianne's argument. Well, we're going to put the ideas on the stage version of success. No. That's 7 years ago.
We did that.
They've been on the stage. Now we need to win. You need to win. The reason Kshama's been successful is because she wins. And Kshama has made the point. You build
She's a winner
by winning.
You back that loser, Bernie.
Exactly.
You lost. You're a loser.
Exactly. You have to win. Repeated defeats are demoralizing. That's what she said. She said you have to put wins on the board to keep your movement going.
Right. You can't keep sucking people into these quixotic battles against a Wall Street owned party, asking them to do labor oriented reform. They have no interest in doing that. Right. Like if the people supporting you are very interested in the health of Wall Street, you know what Wall Street likes? Unemployment, because it drives down wages, which increases corporate profits. That's what they like. You're at cross purposes with the whole donor class of the Democratic Party.
Right. Exactly. You know, I like this screenshot. This might be the clipped shot. I like this. All right, here we go.
And it's not entirely clear to me, and I could be convinced, but it's not entirely clear to me that the fact of a candidate being worse than Bernie means there still aren't real, tangible, valuable gains that could be had for the left and for working people by using their candidacy to advance various policies that are identical to Bernie's policies.
Okay, so then there's a few minutes of talk where they talk about something that's kind of unrelated. For the interest of time, we're going to skip ahead a little bit to where Kshama addresses that point. So here we go.
But just to clarify on the other point that you raised, that, well, are we going to say that just because somebody is not Bernie, then we are just going to reject them and maybe they're bringing some value? No, I think we have to be clear, or maybe they bring something of value for working people. That's where I think I just want to clarify that when I mention Bernie, I don't mean that Bernie is the standard and then you have to get up to his standard. In some ways, it's the other way around, in the sense that I would say that if we want to stay true to working people and not create illusions in people who are going to sell working people out, then you have to have Bernie as the floor. There's a ceiling and a floor. Bernie is not the ceiling, he's the floor. Like,
right.
if these candidates are not even
Bare
Bernie
minimum.
Sanders,
right,
then I don't believe that they are going to serve any purpose. In fact, it'll actually be problematic, because if we start creating illusions in them, so there's a difference between an ordinary person voting for some candidate who's going to sell them out because they feel like they're out of options. But it's quite another for me to publicly create illusions in those candidates who I know are going to sell out. Do you see what I'm saying? There's a difference between those two things. And so I cannot. So when you say, can you not rhetorically support them? No, I cannot rhetorically support them, because it's not rhetorical. It's about actually, am I presenting the truth as I know it to the working class, or am I creating illusions in things that I know are illusion creating? So that's different than tomorrow, if one of these two candidates was to actually become a fighter for the working class. I don't expect this, but if they were going to, then I would happily say, wow, I was wrong. People should vote for this candidate and we should campaign for them, and let's see if we can build a new party out of this. So
what does that look like? What would it look like?
We're not above doing that. But we also at every moment I have to say, what I say publicly has to be in accordance with what I actually believe, not what I wish would happen. There's a difference between
what I say has to be in accordance with what I believe, not with what I wish were true.
Right.
Also, at every moment,
see how she reacts to this.
I have to say, what I say publicly has to be in accordance with what I actually believe, not what I wish would happen. There's a difference between
right, but Kshama, I think that's not what I'm saying.
No, that's exactly what you're saying. That's precisely what you're saying. She put it better than you ever could. That's exactly 100% perfectly representative of what you're saying. You are wishing that Marianne and RFK represent this opportunity.
Right.
That they don't. You're wishing that. And you are trying to will that into some momentum. But all you have is will, because what you're seeing is not actually there. You're ginning this up in your head. And she says it absolutely perfectly there.
In terms of what you said, why can't we be live and let live? Yeah, I'm not preventing Marianne Williamson from running. But if you're asking me what I think about her, I'm going to tell you what I think about her. But she's free to run. But do I think it's in the interest of working people? No, I don't.
No, I don't. Simple as that.
That's it. Look, when Jimmy Dore said after Bernie endorsed Hillary, the Democratic Party is a waste of time. It's a graveyard for revolutionary movements. He didn't coin that, but he definitely picked up on that.
Well, she actually coined that. She said that. She said the path to progressive reform inside the Democratic Party leads to a graveyard.
I think,
but they credit that to her.
Do they? Yeah.
I'm pretty sure they do.
I thought this was one of these things that radicals have been saying for like decades about.
I thought that was her.
Party.
I could be wrong.
It's possible. The sentiment has been there. Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
Like movement activists making that argument about getting involved in the Democratic Party. That's been around for a long time. But I think that people like Bree and people who are jumping on JFK, who are jumping on Marianne Williamson, they just have to move on at this point. And I was fair when Dore first said that. I said, you know what? He might be right. I never dismissed it. I said, but we got to try to do this inside approach. We got to try to take over the state delegates. You remember that? We're going to take over the delegates so we can control the electoral process. And you remember we had the some victories in California with getting delegate slates elected. And we were going to do it from the bottom up like the post-Goldwater Republicans did. And we're going to get our people into office. And so we got Ocasio-Cortez and the other squad members. I mean, today when I was doing some research for the AOC thing, it brought me back, man. I mean, there were some videos there of the conflict between AOC and Pelosi. What's it about? And you remember the squad was really dangerous and the media hated them. Remember the media hated them? Remember that? Remember Anderson Cooper giving AOC this really hard interview? Well, do you really think that Mr. fucking Vanderbilt over there? You remember that? You remember that?
Oh, yeah.
She was a hero to us. We tried that approach. I mean, I did. I didn't immediately take it as a given that wouldn't work. But now we ran the experiment. We just saw what AOC turned into. We just saw what she is now. She's Darth Cortez now. We see what this all resulted in. To keep, it's the definition of insanity, right? Doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. To expect us to keep getting invested in this, that's crazy. So now, it's a very perplexing moment that we're in. Chris Hedges suggests building alternative institutions and kind of an alternative culture, an alternative society. I mean, that's what a counterculture has traditionally been, right? It's an outside culture. He's talking about something, perhaps more substantive. I'll tell you one thing. The people on the right are already trying to do that. They're trying to create their own brands as alternatives to brands that are anti-conservative, right? I mean, they're trying to do that. Whether you like what they stand for or not, they are trying to find ways to get away from institutions that they don't like, that don't like them. And we really have not sat down to figure out how we can divest our money out of the system in that way, how we can create products that perhaps compete with corporations that we don't want to support. We haven't even started talking about things like that. So and again, we don't have the answers, but that's the conversation we need to be having. And yes, Kshama is a winner. So it's worth looking at what she's doing as a guide, as a model to consider, not to blindly follow, but, she wins. She's a winner. Let's take a look at what she's doing. Why is she winning? What she considers doing is worth considering. And as you said, when we discussed this offline, this is all going to be irrelevant pretty quickly. Like, how long are these? There's no steam behind these primary campaigns.
Right. Like, we're focusing.
So how long can they go on?
Because I think this is one of our last chances to
That's what you said. Because when we discussed this show, I said, well, it seems like we're going to be spending a lot of time on that shit. And that's what Keaton said. He said, I think it's worth, because I want to make a final statement on it. And fair enough. Because how long is this going to go on? How many of you out there are going to go make phone calls for RFK or Marianne? How many of you out there are going to go in the snow in New Hampshire? They're not even going to make it that far. But how many of you are going to donate? How many of you are going to open up your pockets and actually give money to these people? So in the end, how long is this going to last? I mean, I'd be shocked if either one of them makes it to the first primary. What is it? South Carolina?
Yeah.
This year. I'd be shocked if either one of them makes it that far.
And if they do, it's South Carolina.
Let me tell you, Marianne, if Marcel has anything to say about it, she's never going back there.
All right, let's do a few more of these super chats, and we have one more segment to get to. Thank you guys.
We got to get to Ronnie.
Yeah, indeed. Thank you guys for sticking around. Thanks for being here. Please hit that subscribe button. Please hit that like button. Like check, as they say. Do a little like check. Like this stream and subscribe to this channel, please. Thank you very much for your support. Thank you all for being here and staying up with us tonight. Zach, thanks for the $4.99. RFK Jr. never held office. He's speaking to the voters in a unifying way. You are ignorant to what he's capable of, yet speak with such certainty. I'm certain that what he says doesn't matter because who he's saying it to are a bunch of fucking imbeciles called Democratic Party voters. That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. It has nothing to do with what he's saying. It has to do with who he's saying it to. You're competing in a pool of voters who are dumb and shallow and incurious. That's the main point. It really has much less to do with what he's saying or what Marianne's saying, for that matter. People act like what these candidates say makes any difference. To the cowbell-waving morons and the bullhorn-blowing it does not matter. That's the main point. Anyway, I've said that enough times on this show, I feel like. That's a point that people should have gotten through their heads by now. Fizzy Pop Slippers, thanks for $1.99. I don't recall seeing you here before. Zach, again, thank you, Zach. I really appreciate your generosity with all of these. Noam Chomsky is advocating starving children of people who choose not to experiment with their bodies. Okay, all right. Yes, no, I don't agree with Noam Chomsky on that, on the mandates and all that stuff. I don't know if he exactly put it that way, but you're interpreting it that way. But no, look,
I'd be surprised, but okay.
Yeah, but I don't agree with him on that. Bernie's who need to come out swinging, not RFK Jr. All right, American Autopsy. Inches on layaway, son. You're talking about that's from a while back. I think that was my 5.5 inches gag. Zach Boyles, RFK is literally suing Biden for violating the First Amendment. Yeah, he has that social media censorship lawsuit that he's filed against the Biden government. Yes, indeed. That's why I don't understand quite what he was saying. I think he was trying to make the point that, oh, glad you agree on free speech when it's books, but not when it's other things. I think that was kind of an inartful, unclear way of making that point. I think RFK's message of unity, I tell you who's profiting off of this RFK campaign. Us. Yeah, right, exactly.
One time, I walked into the pool house, and I found Sammy Davis fucking Ann Margaret.
I'll tell you, Zach, you're starting to convince us that maybe this RFK campaign is better for us than we realize. I think RFK Jr. with a message of unity, kicking off as a Dem, is a great political strategy. You guys not even considering it in good faith is really depressing.
What is not good faith about what we said?
Yeah. Do you mean it's not considering it in good faith, meaning taking him in good faith? I don't care if he's acting in good faith. I know that to say, I'm going to remind the Democratic Party of its populist roots and bring it back there, I know that is delusional nonsense. I don't care whether he means it or not. It really doesn't matter to me all that much whether he's in good faith saying that or not. Either way, it's a delusional thing to say. And I'm certainly not going to convince, I'm not going to try and persuade people to take that seriously because it's not a serious thing to say. I'm sorry. Bree, how about one more trip back to the Dem well? Yeah, exactly. Well, there you go. Cool Blue, thanks again. PMC Politics Talks sounds like they're in therapy. Yeah. Exactly. No, it does have that quality to it. It really does. You're actually right. All right, Devin Doyle. Here's a nice change of pace. Sorry. Russell's mental and emotional axis is interesting. Keaton, would you describe it as anger, complex PTSD, avoidant attachment? I don't know. Russell? What do you...
Devin, tonight is the night I ran out of patience with you, my friend. It's enough.
Yeah.
It's enough.
Yeah, come on. James Vandersanden. Bree and Kshama are omitting Extra Bulla. Oh, that's right. Extra Bulla. They are not giving him love. In fact, I haven't seen Extra Bulla in here in quite a while. I wonder, maybe we should check on the Extra Bulla campaign, see how that's going. I haven't seen him in a while.
I heard it was in rehab.
Oh yeah, maybe.
I mean that's it's good for his campaign. You know, everyone likes that story. You reemerge from rehab, ready to take on the world.
Yeah, maybe. Then, maybe we'll have to go somewhere with that. Who knows? I flagged this comment, and I think when I responded to Zach, I think that I addressed this. But Marianne's definitely a waste of money. You can't compare to RFK, who was saying things that even Bernie didn't, unprecedented things that get people killed. Once again, and Lenin's Walrus, maybe you've been here before. Forgive me if I'm forgetting you. But maybe you've given us some chats in the past. You sound somewhat familiar, but my point is that what you're saying in a Democratic primary is secondary. The main problem is who you're saying it to. The forum in which you are competing is a forum in which you are not going to be given a fair shot. And even if you were, the voters are so fucking dumb that even if you were given a fair shot, they're going to vote against you anyway because they're stupid. They don't respond to that kind of shit. That's my point. All right. Let's do... Oops.
We got another one.
You say cowbell getting a backlash too. You say a lot. Well, no, what I'm saying is the cowbell response is the response that you get when you start to make legitimate points. This is the same point, guys. This is the same point that we've been making.
I could have used a little more cowbell.
This is the same point we've been saying the whole time, which is why it's strange that a lot of people who love RFK are basically, it's almost as if you didn't absorb the point of like no running in the Democratic Party, period. Like, no. If you're going to say, well, no, but RFK, he's the real one, well, then you're not that much different from the people who say Marianne is the real one. The only difference is you like RFK and they like Marianne, right?
You like Coke, they like Pepsi.
Right, you like Coke, they like Pepsi. It's your right to like Coke more than Pepsi. It's their right to like Pepsi more than Coke. I don't even care. That to me that's not even where I'm coming from. What I'm coming from is no matter what you say, if you're saying it to the MSNBC watching base of the Democratic Party, you're not going anywhere. You're not going anywhere because they're not listening. That's the point.
Yeah, Zach, I mean, we appreciate you want to keep throwing us dollars. We'll lap dance for you all night. But I honestly don't know why you're hung up on this. Like, why? Move on, man. Move on.
I mean, I'm not, that's been our position the whole time.
RFK is going to talk some shit, some of it coherent, some of it not. Unfortunately, I don't think he's going to do the kind of reveals of the things that went on at the Kennedy compound that I have been intimating tonight. Now, that is a campaign I could get behind, but I don't think he's going to do that. And he's going to endorse Joe Biden.
Right.
That's all that's like, how do you think this ends? How do you think this ends? With RFK making some kind of bold stand? Come on, he's telling you. He's giving you the my good friend Joe Biden treatment from the beginning, from the get-go.
My family is friends with him, he said.
I mean, that's those are the people who always make change. People who are born into the aristocracy. Come on, man. Come on. What are we talking about here?
Yeah, no, exactly. But it just doesn't compute. It doesn't compute. All right, you guys are busting out the wallets here. We appreciate that. We do have another segment that we want to do. Let me just see. I think we're almost through these. Okay, let's get into the Ron DeSantis stuff, and then we'll do some more super chats once we're done with those. This last segment is really not too long. All right, here we go. I'm just getting our little house in order here. All right, beautiful.
Man,
okay.
Zach's still throwing us money. Jeez.
I know. Still. Are you RFK? Is that why you're able to give us all these super chats? Are you a Kennedy yourself, sir? I'm starting to think maybe you're a Kennedy. Maybe you got some of that dynasty money that you're able to part with. I mean, thank you. In all seriousness, Zach, thank you. But it's a little awkward.
And for the rest of you,
cheap f***s.
Everybody's doing
cough it up. Cough it up.
Everybody's all right. Here, let's just run through these. We got 10 more. This way we're square and then we can do our last segment. What happened here? What did I do? Zach again, because I've explained these details over and over, and you say the same things. You're gaslighting me and lying to the audience. You keep getting so much wrong. I don't know. What do you mean we're lying to the audience? I'm not gaslighting you. I'm telling you my opinion. What I'm telling you is there's no way a guy like RFK is going to win a Democratic primary. There's no way Marianne Williamson's going to win a Democratic primary, no matter what they say. I'm not refuting what they say necessarily. I'm just saying, no matter what any of them say, the people who dominate Democratic primary politics are the people who wagged a cowbell in Russell's face when he asked if George W. Bush should be arrested next. There are people with no politics, no critique of anything, no critical thinking skills, no curiosity, no sense of solidarity, no sense of purpose beyond what Ari Melber tells them their sense of purpose should be that day. They are never, ever, ever, as a majority, rallying behind a candidate like Bernie or Marianne or RFK.
Yep.
I told you about RFK Jr.
Oh, my God.
Local network of homeschoolers, doctors, lawyers, family support. He has weekly family finance program. Get informed. I'm telling you, what I'm telling you is it doesn't matter. That's what I'm telling you. William Brooks, electoral politics is not the answer. Thank you, William. Appreciate that. Thank you. Eric Torres, $5. The Biden administration is just as bad as the Bush administration 20 years ago. Yes, I agree that they are. Well, I wouldn't say just as bad, but I mean, that was a unique evil. But I understand your point. They are approaching those levels in their own way, in the same way that the Bush White House was bad, yes. So I agree that they are waiting for some bullshit to push the Restrict Act. Well, yes, the Restrict Act is sort of like the tech version of the Patriot Act. And look, Russia-Ukraine is not what Iraq was yet, but I think the latest death toll estimate was like 350,000 people. That's a lot of wasted lives. That's a lot of lives that were cut short for fucking nothing because I just heard, I was listening to the Redacted podcast earlier. They cited some article, I forget what it was, that said that now, even at the Biden White House, they're starting to basically say, look, if Ukraine can't make this offensive happen in the spring, if they can't make significant gains in the spring, then they have to start thinking about a negotiated surrender. And a negotiated surrender basically means that the war is going to end exactly how it could have ended before it started.
Yeah,
it's going to end exactly how it could have ended before it started, with the 350,000 people, mostly Ukrainians, by the way, who the liberals love so much, now dead, who should be alive. If the this is what's so Orwellian about this. They say that the people who are against the war are Putin sympathizers. Meanwhile, the people who are against the war are people who didn't want this violence in the first place. They're actually people who wanted way more Ukrainians to be alive right now than are, because the so-called pro-Ukrainian side had their way. There's no you are either for war or you're against war, because war is hell. War is murder.
Right.
And a war in Ukraine is going to get Ukrainians slaughtered. So the way to protect Ukraine, if you're pro-Ukraine, you should be against the war, because that's where the war is going on.
Right.
It's that fucking simple. It's not rocket science. Talk about gaslighting.
Well, and outside of this country and a couple of select allies, the world sees this.
Right. The world knows that.
The world sees that we're ginning up this war to enrich our defense contractors, and we're using Ukrainian lives to play this game of risk in an attempt to weaken Russia. And it's having really, in the end, the opposite effect. The long-term ramifications of this are leading people to find alternatives to the dollar. And a country that is running its entire economy on the assumption that people are going to buy its treasuries really shouldn't go down that road.
Right, exactly. Deanne Samo, thank you for the $10. Haven't seen you here before. Please subscribe to the channel. Thank you. Divert all of Marianne Williamson's money to Kshama Sawant. Let's go Knicks. Yeah, I have a Knicks baseball hat actually here that I almost wore on the show this evening. But yes, I think a workers' movement like that is obviously much more worth supporting than either of these two primary campaigns.
Oh, that's something else I want to mention. Keep not getting to this, because the current events are coming so fast and furious. We've got to do something about the Cy Hirsch piece about Zelensky embezzling $400 million.
Yeah, we should do something, shouldn't we?
Yeah, we should on Sunday. We should try to carve out time for that.
Okay, yeah, I'm down for that. We'll do. Russell, can you flag these super chats coming in while I read these?
I just flagged one. Yeah.
We're gonna be up here all night, man. You guys are staying up late. This is what, 3:23? All right, we've done longer.
We have done longer.
All right. While we're on the topic, we'll take some of these. Mois, thanks for the $5. Have you guys discussed the Democrat Party loyalty oath yet? How can you have any integrity left after you sign it like Bernie did? I don't know. I mean, is that legally binding though? I mean, no, right? It's like because there's some people who some states won't
like
allow
they said,
you to run as an independent.
They're a private club. They can do whatever they want, right?
But aren't there some states that say like you can't run in a primary and then seek another ballot line in the general? Are there some states that have that? I mean, I don't know.
Supposedly, I'm watching the chat, so if anybody has direct knowledge of that,
yeah, let us know because I've heard something about that. But I mean, in most cases, you could just tell them to go fuck themselves and run as a write-in.
I think that's a freedom of speech issue.
Right? What are they going to throw you in jail for violating the Democratic Party loyalty oath? Exactly. I mean, just tell them to eat shit.
Go
ahead.
Somebody just yeah, that's pretty funny. It's not a super chat, but I'll read it. You guys make more money pissing people off.
Exactly. Yeah, we're doing pretty well.
Getting the audience angry. It's the talk radio effect. Yeah, I mean, that's true and it's not true because people always comment, wow, you should have more subscribers. Now, partly, look, it's a long way to the top if you want to rock and roll. Like, it takes time to really, these days, it's not as easy as it was in people who got in 2016. Like, it's much harder to build. We're building at a pretty good pace now. But it's also, look, man, we have heterodox positions. I've always said that, if you really want to grift in this space, pick a lane.
Right, exactly, yeah.
Pick a lane and just tell a certain audience exactly what they want to hear. Because every single time we do an off-script show, something that people might not expect, or it might be an unpopular point of view, yeah, man, it slows down our subscriber growth. We always lose some subscribers when we do a segment like that. But I think it's also the reason that our live view counts we punch so much above our weight. Because we get the live view counts of people who have 5-6 times our subscribers because you're not going to get the same show you'd get anywhere else. So the people who like what we're doing, we're like a pure heroin version of it.
Oh, CJ from RBN is here. Hey, CJ. 16 to 18 can't remember. I think you're taking 16 to 18 states have, what they call the sore loser law. That's what somebody was just saying. Yeah, they're called sore loser laws. I think you could be a bandit in that case. Just fucking run anyway. Just tell them to write my name in. What? It's illegal to tell someone to write your name down? Run as a write-in,
Yeah, I mean, isn't that a First Amendment issue? Like, how can they stop you from running?
Yeah.
Right? I mean,
maybe you can't switch ballot lines to a different party, but you can run as a write-in. The guy's name is RFK. It's not like you could spell it wrong.
Yeah.
Just write me in.
RCK, who is that?
Yeah, right, exactly.
RCA, they're voting for the company.
Write me in. It's spelled RFK. Zach Boyles. We absorb no Dem, then watch Pfizer take over the West. RFK fought that and won't just pretend he didn't and won't treat him like... Okay, so God bless him. I'm not saying...
you ignorant slut.
God bless him. God bless him if that's how you feel, and God bless you. All right? But my point here I don't want to drive the rest of the audience insane by saying the same thing 20 times, but my in an hour time span. My point is where he's running, where he's choosing to run, the game he's choosing to play. You cannot win that game. It's been demonstrated before, and you're wasting people's time by gassing them up into thinking you can. All right. Mad Crab, Extra Bulla's arch rival, the crab. Anyone convincing themselves running in the DNC works at all is acting out like children of alcoholic parents. Yeah, that's a point we made earlier.
Exactly.
Sandy, great show. Thank you.
Thank you.
Zach, I don't have health insurance. This is important. Well, you could get yourself a bronze plan for what you paid us tonight. So, I mean, my advice to you would be maybe, for your own benefit, obviously, look out for number one there, Zach. $1.99. Zach, are you available for dinner? All right, so you get some little action going there. Mescalito, thanks for the $5. I'm Lenin. This account has money. If RFK can get attention to the black-pilled side of the party, your viewers, it's something. No, the Democrats are not black-pilled. We're not Democrat. I'm not voting in a Democratic primary. My vote is not available to him. I will not participate in a Democratic primary. So, black-pilled Democrats, I don't know who you're talking about. But thank you, Mescalito. All right. Let's knock this out.
He's saying we don't believe in anything. The black-pilled people are people who are just resigned to collapse, right?
No, but I think he's saying RFK can win the black-pilled Democrats, and I'm saying there are no black-pilled Democrats. People who are black-pilled are like us.
They're not Democrats. Yeah.
Exactly. All right, let's knock this out. This is not a long segment, folks, but I did think it was interesting here to note that as Biden made his candidacy official, you started seeing the reality of 2024 sort of come into focus on the right side of the aisle, and you started seeing some sentiment kind of like this from Matt Walsh. As I've said before, I'm a single-issue voter in the primary. The only thing that matters is nominating the guy with the best chance to beat Biden. There is nothing else to take into consideration. Nothing matters if we don't win. We have to win. That's interesting. You don't usually hear Republicans talk electability politics that much. He sounds there a lot like a lot of the Democrats, a lot like Rob Reiner sounded in 2020. Only thing that matters is who can beat Trump. Nothing else matters. Right. I don't care. Right? You're starting to see a little anxiety that, now the election's actually here. The time to pound the chests is over. Now we actually have to think about how we can actually win this thing. And Walsh has made favorable nods to DeSantis in the past. We also saw this article here. Go ahead.
I think an element of that as well is that it's inconceivable that a Mitt Romney or a Jeb Bush would be the nominee. So when he says that, he's not committing himself to voting for anyone that someone like Matt Walsh really would find unacceptable.
That's true. Because
it's a different time.
Right. Exactly. No, that is a fair point. Absolutely. But in addition to that, you had Piers Morgan, who's not a Republican necessarily, but sort of I would argue, a fairly right independent now. Memo to GOP. The way to 2024 victory is with winner DeSantis, not loser Trump. And, he obviously makes the case here throughout this op-ed that Biden is a uniquely vulnerable incumbent and that basically the election comes down to how the Republicans choose to run it, which I think is pretty much right on the money there. He says, America deserves and urgently needs better than this in such difficult times, meaning Joe Biden, and that means a leader bursting with more youthful energy, drive, and purpose. But if there's one thing even more bonkers than Biden running again, it's surely Donald Trump running against him again as the Republican nominee. As Albert Einstein is reputed to have said, the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. And he points out accurately that since 2016, Trump has been a drag on the party in national elections, 2018, 2020, and 2022. And so I think that is more or less correct there. And so you're starting to see, what did I say? I said this early on. DeSantis Trump is going to depend on how confident the Republicans are going in. If they feel like Biden's weak enough where they can win with Trump, they'll go with Trump. If they start feeling like this, when you start seeing them start to think about electability questions and things like that, that's a sign that they're a little more cautious, as they should be, in my view, about their prospects in 2024. and therefore might make the more cautious and what I think is at the end of the day the wiser decision in going with DeSantis.
Everything is proceeding as I have foreseen.
This is exactly what I've been saying for a year. That, yeah, they all know Trump. He was the freaking president. Of course he was outpolling DeSantis. DeSantis hasn't even announced that he's running yet. Republicans are going to look at Trump. They're going to see a guy with a lot of liabilities who can only do one term. Best case scenario. Even if he wins, he can only do one term. And they're going to look at DeSantis, who clearly has qualities that Trump does not have, not least of which is his youth, the fact that they'll get 2 terms out of him, the fact that things that Trump only kind of vaguely nodded at because he doesn't really understand the ideology that he represents entirely himself. DeSantis is actually done in Florida. He's actually governed according to these things that conservatives would like to see. This idea that liberals spread that, oh, he's so unpopular in Florida. Then why did he blow out these Democratic counties in his last election? Why did he expand his margins by 15, 25, 30 points in places like Miami-Dade if he's so unpopular with Democrats? Like, if that's not a canary in the coal mine, what is? If that doesn't tell you that this is what happens when you tell people they can't express their opinions. They don't stop having them. They just stop telling you what they think. And when you look at the result of an election like that, where they get to vote in a booth and nobody knows who they voted for, well, it should tell you something about how people really feel about his policies. Because you got 15 idiots online who think that the fight he picked with Disney is a political liability for him. That is wishful thinking. That is wishful thinking. That was a great political move for him, and that's why he's not dropping it. You have all these hand-wringing articles. Oh my God, why does he keep doing this? Because he's smarter than you're giving him credit for. He has pretty good political instincts, as the fact that he bucked the midterm trend, even in light of Roe v. Wade, showed. In the end, he wants to keep this going because it's working for him in a way that the corporate media is not going to acknowledge, and certainly liberals are not going to recognize, but it's good for him. It's good for him to be fighting with Disney. People hate Disney at this point.
Yeah. 44% of Republican respondents in the 2-day poll ended Tuesday said they had a more favorable view of DeSantis because of the fight with Disney, which led him to sign a retaliatory law in February that aims to strip the company of its self-governing authority, at its Orlando area parks. But it was unclear whether the conflict would help DeSantis gain support among the wider electorate should he formally enter and win the 2024 Republican presidential primary, becoming the party's challenger to Democratic President Joe Biden. 73% of respondents, including 82% of Democrats and 63% of Republicans, said they were less likely to support a political candidate who backs laws designed to punish a company for its political or cultural stances. Americans are divided.
That's a polling trick. That's like, are you for socialized healthcare? No. Do you believe that healthcare is a human right? Yes. Do you want free healthcare? Yes. Ask them directly.
Well, here it is. When they do ask them directly, here it is on the Republican side. DeSantis has argued that his actions against Disney were rightfully rolling back special treatment for the company. Some 64% of the Republicans in the Reuters Ipsos poll agreed, with 37% siding with the vast majority of Democrats. So that's why they say this could help him in a Republican primary.
Of course. Well, and also when you ask the question in the abstract, what people are thinking is a politician going against a company that does something you like.
Right.
You got to ask it very specifically, going after Disney, because that's what he's doing. It's not like he has 10 instances of this where it's going to be a general issue. It's really going to come down to how you feel about him doing with Disney. And it's not going to be hard for him to frame that issue as, well, why should Disney be its own government? You know, I mean, I've got behind me on the bookshelf, man, I've got Carl Hiaasen writing about how crazy that is. And I'm pretty sure he's a Democrat. So that's not a new thing floating around Florida, that it's weird that Disney has its own fire department, its own cops, its own jails, and its own right to literally govern a section of Florida. So he can always frame it that way, which is pretty much how they're framing it.
Yeah, absolutely. So you saw how the Biden announcement shook things on the Democrat side, and I think you're starting to see people on the Republican side start to really think more strategically about the 2024 race. All right, we're going to take some more super chats. Virtuoso, you're on the line. We got time for a quick hello if you want to say a quick hello, and we got Tusker here as well. So if you guys want to say hello, you guys come on in here. Tusker, you want to turn your mic on?
Hello.
Hey, Virtuoso, what's going on? Tusker, what's going on? We got our Patreon callers here calling in. Hey, friends.
Man,
me and Tusker, we're talking about doing a moonlighting parody.
Yeah.
We're gonna solve the mysterious case of the missing left.
That's actually better than what I proposed that we covered on. What's up, Virtuoso? What's going on?
Hey, Tusker, what's going on?
Oh, nothing. I'm just watching this marathon that these two boys have pulled out, like one of their longest shows just by themselves. Didn't even need my help tonight.
Yeah, I figured it was going long, but you know, it's not one of our longest yet. Although it could be. But what's on your guys' mind, Virtuoso? What was on your mind? What'd you call in for?
Well, I wanted to touch on the segment you guys did on Briahna Joy Gray, and I gotta say it's a really strange phenomenon where the online left is going. To me, it's been the Vanguard boys. It's been Mike Figueredo. It's been her. It's been I don't know how many. The lot of them are selling hopium to the people that really do not have the time or the resources. Exactly what you're saying is true. I told you, like, I think I responded to you on Twitter, and it's like, come on, Russ, do you have, please, $27 more and a doorknob left in you?
I think Zach does. I think Zach might have $27 more.
Yeah, right.
Zach, what you doing?
Yeah, Zach, cough it up, man, cough it up.
And I just cannot help it. Like, and it's like once election season kicks off, man, I'm gonna be getting those unwarranted SMS text messages, and I'm just trying to get off of that. Text stop. I'm gonna be doing that. All day long.
I get bombarded by them with emails and texts. I only don't unsubscribe because I do this. And I feel like it's worth keeping an eye on what bullshit they're peddling to people. Yeah. I mean, it's amazing. Like some of the emails I get, they're just, you imagine the mind of somebody. I always think of, there's this scene in Woody Allen's movie, Hannah and Her Sisters, where Max von Sydow, as is typical in Woody Allen movies, is dating like a beautiful, much younger Barbara Hershey in the movie. And he's watching wrestling. And he says, can you imagine the mentality of a mind that would watch wrestling? That's how I feel when I get these emails where they're like, Russell, word is out. Tucker Carlson was just fired. We've searched our records and we don't know what you think about it. Click here. Do you support Tucker Carlson or are you against Tucker Carlson? And I always remember that scene. Like, can you imagine the mind of someone who would respond to that email? It'd be like, oh, God damn it. I hate Tucker. Let me click on this. Like, who's the person this is aimed at? But it works on somebody because they wouldn't keep sending this shit to me, which they do like daily, if it didn't work on somebody.
Which doesn't, the only politician I've ever donated to was Bernie. And I don't think, maybe you guys know better, was there ever a moment in time where Bernie sold his like donor list to the Democratic Party that officially came out? Because they certainly did. I mean, he certainly did.
It seems like he did. Yes.
I don't think it's ever been officially
now.
because there's no way these people would have ever come across me.
Right.
So,
Yeah, I don't know. I don't really get them. Maybe they're spam or whatever, but yeah, I don't really get
think Russell, weren't you saying that like kind of where you live, a lot of people are voting for Trump?
Yes.
And I live in a red state. So maybe your district in New York is primarily blue, so they're not.
Well, he's talking about his old neighborhood. He's talking about Flushing. Harlem is mostly blue, obviously.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, I figured the reason why I get them is because I live in like the capital city, and urban centers are more likely to. So that's the reason why they're trying to actively court me in a red state.
Jared says our revolution sold them.
Okay, thank you, Jared.
Maybe that's it.
Yeah, no, I get shit from the.
I mean, I was going to point the
DNC
finger
and
at
all that crap.
Yeah, but I was actually just going to call in and just shop our Moonlight parody here, Russell, after the show. So I was trying to stay under the radar.
Okay.
It worked well.
We're gonna have to go to Extra Bulla and see if he has the technology to put us in the same room.
If Extra Bulla can build it, we can come. I don't know. That sounds weird.
Thanks, Red Z. That's why I love this depraved message board and you too. Thank you, Red Z.
Thank you.
Janice Anderson or Janice, right? Janice. Sore loser laws prevent party candidates from running in the general if they don't get the nomination. Hasn't been used for presidential level yet, but could be. I don't think they'd win that. I think that strikes me as a crock of shit.
I think they would run into constitutional issues with that.
Yeah, I mean it's insane. Here in West Virginia, conservative workers hate DeSantis. Interesting. That's interesting to know. That's an interesting piece.
Oh, yeah?
Yes, piece of data there.
Conservative workers in West Virginia? Why?
West Virginia. Mike, thanks for the $20. Just got home. Caught you live. Thanks for the great show. Thanks for watching, Mike, after a long day's work. Mescalito for $5. For me, 27 to hear the CIA is evil repeated in mainstream dialogue is worth it. It's only a waste if you believe in Santa and socialist U.S. presidents.
But he's not saying that. Doesn't he have like a family member in the CIA working on his campaign?
Who doesn't?
Ross, perhaps people in West Virginia are developing a class consciousness,
I mean, hey, fair enough. They should. He has a terrible record on workers, but generally that doesn't really, look at Trump. That doesn't usually hurt them in Republican primaries.
Right.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see what happens. It will be interesting. I mean, DeSantis is probably going to declare. Doesn't he have to wait till the end of the legislative session in Florida? I think that's what he's saying. Like May or June or something is when I think he's going to get in. So
I don't know. Interesting. I thought like a lot of the polling, and I've even seen like the Babylon Bee kind of like jabbing at him about, Ron DeSantis dyes skin and hair to run and to declare for presidential election. So I don't know. I think with the indictments of Trump, I think maybe a lot of people didn't really want to vote for Trump, but they're definitely rallying around him because they feel as though he's under attack. And so I don't know. Maybe DeSantis is just going to sit by the side and maybe run once Trump's done.
All right, child of God, we definitely, I definitely need to get out of New York City, but I don't think that's skewing my perspective on DeSantis. What do you think we have DeSantis supporters in New York City? Come on. They don't, they don't. Yeah, no, I would say they're starting to hate him at a level that approaches how much they hate Trump. And were he to become the nominee, he would become the new Trump very quickly for them.
Yeah, indeed. All right, is that our show? I think that's our show.
Yeah, I'm just gonna follow up a little on that. Yeah. Trumpers love Trump, period. Yes, but how many of them are there versus how many of them found him convenient? Right? Like how many of them in the cold logic of we can get this guy for 2 terms and he's going to push our agenda, or we can throw another brick through the window. Maybe this guy could actually lose to Biden. What are they going to pick? I mean, hey, maybe I'll be proven wrong, and you can everybody knows that I've been on this trumpet for a year, so you can all
laugh. I don't know. It seems like
they're all going to laugh at you. Huh?
It seems like there's a large portion of the left that wants to throw a brick in the window of the Democratic Party with RFK. So I think that the sentiment is probably the same on the other side.
I mean, look, what I think is going to happen, what I think is probably going to happen. Well, I shouldn't say probably, because I think it could go either way, but I think it depends on how confident they're feeling that they can win anyway. It's kind of difficult for me to imagine Biden beating DeSantis. Like, I can imagine Biden beating Trump. I can see that happening because Trump's negatives are just so high.
Right.
And Trump is his own deranged, weird thing.
Right.
Biden's going into this in his early 80s, losing it by the day. You got Kamala Harris, who no one wants to be the president. Like, just that alone, just very fundamentally, that alone is going to weigh very heavily on the race if the Republicans have a normal human being on the other side. Right? If the Republicans have Trump on the other side, then all of those disadvantages that Biden and Harris have going in
it's a wash.
Could be a wash. Right. Exactly. So just right there, before you get into anything else, you're forfeiting a lot by running Trump. It's hard to imagine a spring chicken like Ron DeSantis losing to this decrepit, octogenarian, senile guy who can't. I mean, it's almost impossible for me to envision.
Exactly.
Biden beating him.
And
I can envision Biden beating Trump.
The debate we're having is, are the Republican primary voters going to figure that out? I believe they will.
Right. That's the question.
That's my bet.
That's the question. Like, here's obviously, I mean, I've seen you in the chat before here, and, you're welcome. You're nice. You're fine. Like I said, it's a viewpoint diverse audience. See, the chat's moving so fast now that I lost you, but somebody here in the chat said, DeSantis can't beat Trump and Trump can't beat Biden. So what's the problem? Well, from a Democrat point of view, that makes sense, right? I mean, that's what the Democrats are counting on. Democrats are counting on the Republicans doubling down on Trump and not picking who is clearly, in my view, the more electable candidate. And that might happen. That absolutely might happen. That's very, very possible. So we'll see.
I also think it's underestimating Trump in the way that the Democratic Party has always done. Like, he's faded from the narrative with his Twitter banning and stuff like that. I think if it goes to a Trump Biden thing, if he doesn't act like a psycho like he did in his first debate, then I think, it's a little bit more.
Trump can beat Biden. I'm not saying Biden will beat Trump. Trump can beat Biden.
Yeah.
But I can see Trump losing to Biden. Yeah. Whereas I really can't see DeSantis losing to Biden. Like, I just can't really see that.
I can't do that.
And look, I was not one of those people. I was way ahead of the curve on calling Trump as winning the primaries. And then I was calling the election 50-50 on election day. So I was never one of those people who dismissed Trump. But because of all the factors that we're discussing here, and we'll see, man. If I'm wrong, I owe everyone a beer.
There you go.
None of you motherfuckers live here anyway. So.
You'll never be able to take me up on it. DeSantis is Liz Warren of the right. Sad. I will put a shirt in my profile pic if you're right. Crown Heights represent. Oh, so you're out there in Crown Heights. Excellent, Miss Lito.
What are you going to put on?
I put on a DeSantis shirt on the profile pic. All right, that's an interesting bet. Interesting bet.
Put on one where he's eating pudding with his fingers.
Yeah, exactly. All right. I think that's our show, is it not?
I believe that is our show.
All right, everybody. Well, thank you so much. We will be back here on Sunday, April 30th. I believe that's Sunday. Yes. Sunday at 7 p.m. And then we will be back, obviously, Thursday after that. For those here for the first, second, or third time, if you're not subscribed, please hit that subscribe button. Go to patreon.com/DueDissidence and help keep the show going. It really does help us out. It helps us do as many streams as we can and prep them as best we can. So we want to thank you all for doing that. Patreon.com/DueDissidence, or you could sign up at DueDissidence.substack.com. The link is in the chat right now. I'm going to put it here. You could sign up there as a paid member or as a free Substack subscriber. Even if you sign up for free, it really helps us out. It helps you keep in touch with us. Just join our email list. We send you Substack messages when we're going to go live, so you don't miss a live stream, articles, audio podcasts, things like that. So make sure you stay in touch with us. We will be back here on Sunday night at 7 p.m. Thank you, Virtuoso. Thank you, Tusker, for joining us. Always a pleasure to talk to you guys. Thanks, everybody. Be safe. Be well. We'll see you Sunday.
Courage.
Please clap.